corridors within our own city are coordinated. It gives us access to a real-time control center that's manned in Lee Summit, and it also leverages about 50% of the cost through federal funds that are allocated through the Mid-America Regional Council. We've been very pleased with the performance and the assistance we've gotten, and so this is just a routine reauthorization. The money is already budgeted in the cash accounts under the CMIP.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Roll call. Bryant.
Aye.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye. Item number 2 is an agreement with the City of Overland Park regarding improvements on Merriam Lane. And again, we have Mr. Heatherman.
Thank you. This pertains to the second Merriam Lane project, which is under design right now and will begin construction in about a year, that extends the improvements west from 24th Street to the county line. The very edge of that project around 34th Street actually spills into Overland Park. The county line is on a diagonal. We're bringing our project to a nice clean close right past the intersection, but because we're technically off our jurisdiction, we need to have a city-city agreement in place that just clarifies that this is a unified government project. We're the primary. Overland Park really doesn't have a whole lot of interest in it other than to assist us in any right-of-way or other matters. I will say that we are asking that you approve this tonight with the amendment that the final text of the agreement, once it is finalized between the two city law departments, will be presented to the full council. There are just some minor technical and legal issues. We've been going back and forth about the specifics of how we say it, and we just weren't able to get all of that finished up today. So we will bring the proper text once it comes to the full commission, but the spirit of the agreement is as shown tonight, and we'd ask for the committee's approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Roll call. Bryant.
Aye.
Philbrook.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
And I'll just take note that that is with the stipulation that we amend the language before coming to commission.
Thank you. Item 3 is an overview of programs and possible options for Wyandotte County residents in dealing with the emerald ash borer problem. We have Mike Tobin, our interim public works director, here with staff to present this item. Mr. Tobin?
Thank you, Commissioner. This is an effort that has spanned across a couple of departments, notably Parks and Public Works. Staff has been working on it, and I'm going to let Kirk Souther here from our Public Works Department, Jack, the Deputy Parks Director, and Tim Nick from Public Works staff explain all the detail to you. After they finish up, I'll come back in on the end and we'll talk about it, because we're kind of getting into a policy area here as to what goes with this program. So we're part informational and then direction from you as to how we proceed from this date. And having said all that, before I ruin it, I'll let staff take over.
Thank you, Mike. As many of you probably are aware, the emerald ash borer has killed millions of ash trees in the United States, in 24 states and 2 Canadian provinces. It was discovered at Wyandotte County Lake in the summer of 2013. And one important note to take is that it just impacts ash trees. It's not going to impact other trees. It attacks the ash trees. This shows the impact of it on Residential Street in Toledo, Ohio. It came in 2002. It was discovered in Detroit, Michigan, and they believe it came from the Pacific Rim countries. And at this point, there are no natural predators for it either. So it does have quite an impact on the streetscape. An estimated count, study done with the Mid-America Regional Council, sponsored through the Kansas Forest Service, 6.5 million trees in Wyandotte County. Of that amount, if they average 2.6 in the metropolitan area for ash trees, and that shows you how many ash trees would be available. If it was 2.6, 170,000. If it's 1.3, it'd be 85,000. And it's estimated in the metropolitan area that there's close to 6.5 million ash trees. And we have been working with all of the different cities in the region working on this also. There are really 4 locations that ash would be located in. One would be your wooded areas, which most people will let the wooded areas alone and let nature takes care of its course. And then you have government property, you have right-of-ways, and then you also have private properties.
Whoa, stop.
Yes?
Go back to the last one. I'm confused. Estimated 6.53 million trees in Wyandotte County, and estimated 6.43 million in the metro?
In the metro. Of ash trees.
I know, but
Top is all trees.
the top one is all trees?
Correct. In Wyandotte County. And then the next
But
two,
the other one, yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry.
But still, you can't have more in Wyandotte County than you have in the whole metro. Or you mean
We
the
have
whole
100,
metro.
we have a maximum of 170,000 in Wyandotte County and 6.5 million, 6.49 million in the metro.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Go back to the first slide. One thing Kirk forgot to mention here is that's the actual size of the insect that's causing all this damage. I just wanted to note that as he moves forward.
Very destructive little thing. In, as far as determining the unified government properties, we've looked at we left the wooded areas alone, and if there's any ash that might pose any type of a risk, we'll be evaluating that and then cutting those down. We have looked at the other locations. We located all of the ash trees. We measured them, we rated them, and that gives you an analysis of what we recommend with the 391 ash trees to cut down 74 and to treat 317. And as we go through this process, we'll be continually evaluating and reevaluating the effectiveness. Secondly, I talked about the right-of-ways, and in looking at research with different cities, some cities are responsible for right-of-ways, so they'll actually be treating and or cutting ash trees on the right-of-way. Some cities are not responsible for maintaining right-of-ways, and those cities generally have not done a whole lot as far as offering services to their community. In KCK, the ordinance states that we are not responsible for the right-of-way. So with that what I did then is, knowing that we are not responsible for right-of-way, I did some surveying to determine the number of ash trees if the private property did not cut them down, if they were dead and they didn't do anything, if they would fall into our streets or into our utility lines. And I do have that all mapped out, so it'll give us an idea of where those locations are. When you look at the treatment of ash, the treatment is generally good for anywhere from 2 to 3 years, but you're going to have to retreat it after that 3-year period. A lot of cities will be treating the trees every 3 years. The recommended time, the best time to treat them is between May and June and September and October. Those are the best times. And looking at Kansas City, Missouri, their average 16-inch tree that they've treated is $96 per tree for the treatment costs. And then the options and assistance for our residents. If you take a look at that, basically there are a couple different ash trees. That's a white ash. And then they turn nice red fall colors. And we have also a green ash which turns yellow in the fall time. But currently we have educational information on the UG website. It will tell individuals what is an ash tree. A lot of people don't even know what an ash tree looks like, but they can look look at the pictures on the PowerPoint on the website and determine that. In addition, it shows some of the symptoms if their tree has been attacked by the bug. And thirdly, it gives other resources to help them make an educated opinion whether they should cut or should treat their tree. Currently, in Wyandotte County, the residents with a tree branch of 12 inches or less can take it to the yard waste drop-off center and also to Deffenbaugh. So if they are cutting down some trees, those are some resources that we currently have in place. And in addition, after talking with some cities, I got the idea that to get a hold of some contractors to see if we could get some pricing for treatment for our residents. So we have contacted a company and got some bids of trying to get a better price break for individuals in our community. This gives an example of what the contractor has said. The first column is the tree size diameter, and I don't know, I wasn't familiar with it a few years ago till I got on the tree board, but a 10-inch diameter, you have to multiply that times a little over 3, so that'll give you a 30-inch circumference. So that just gives you a little idea with that. The second column gives a price break if a homeowners association or a business has 50 or more plus trees. There's so many dollars per tree according to the diameter of the tree. And then the last column is a price for just an individual tree. When you look at that, the private contractors, they're set up. They have the staff on already hired. They have the chemicals. They have the expertise, and it's just it's in place that the residents could be offered this type of a program. So just going back over it, the unified government, we have identified our trees that we're going to keep and treat, and we've identified those which we are going to cut down. The right-of-way is responsibilities of the property owners, and we do have some options that I listed here about cutting and taking the branches to our 2 locations, and then the possibility of utilizing a private contractor for treatment. And that basically is also with the private property.
Jack, you want to take a second here and explain how we're going to do it in-house on our own trees, please?
Well, we have the option of contracting out or doing it in-house. On average, a 20-inch tree would be, on a contractor, be $120. We could do it in-house for $85. That's not saying we have the manpower to do it, but if we were to do it in-house, it'd be roughly $85.
How much manpower do you think it's gonna take? Because you know how many trees.
Well, we figured 2 guys. And you're limited to 4 months a year you can treat the trees. So it would probably take those 2 guys 4 months a year. And we're planning on doing the golf course because those trees are worth saving. There's a few we need to take out. And we have up to 30-inch trees out there. We're going to go ahead and treat them in-house.
Which parks have the most trees that need to be cut down, you know?
Probably be Wyandotte County Lake, but most of those are in the woods, so nature will take care of that, and then we'll go in when we can and take care of the fallen or trees that are ready to fall or dying.
Will there be any scenario where we would need to replant any trees or anything like that? Do you
I
know?
would say not in the park. It takes care of itself. Wyandotte County Lake, I mean.
But primarily, are you talking about treating trees? the costs that you're talking about are about treating rather than taking them down.
Yes,
And then you would take them down if you have to, if they're
Yes.
dead or dying.
and there's no guarantee that treating will, the tree could still die.
How much to take a tree down?
Depends on
Depends on
size.
the tree, a
I know.
20-inch tree, probably $400.
Jeff?
On the website, you say that you're gonna have specific information for residents. Is there gonna be a recommendation on whether or not someone wants to plant or should plant a new ash tree in their property?
Well, Commissioner, that's part of what we want to talk to you about and bring up for discussion. If I could point out a couple of details, I'll come back to that. The reason in-house that we could do it $1 an inch cheaper in terms of treating the trees is because we can buy the equipment, which runs about $3,000, and then wholesale the material that we spray on them or spray in these holes that are drilled in there, and that's why it would be a little bit cheaper. However, doing that with the staff that we have right now, particularly as Jack is taxed because it's mowing season, and this all happens at the same time, and you all are well aware that we're behind on mowing as the weather has dictated. And when Kirk was talking about right-of-way, we mow a lot of right-of-way. But what he's talking about are the trees that are located adjacent and in the right-of-way that actually belong to residents, that are either sitting in front yards, on nice tracts of ground, et cetera, et cetera. And the thought that Doug had and that we've discussed with staff is that the long-term approach to this would be to provide a program that the residents could come to somewhat reasonably priced that would prevent all of these ash trees from being killed that are in the right-of-way, adjacent to the right-of-way, et cetera. Because if not, we'll probably be the ones end up taking them all down or picking them up as they fall down, or Commissioner Bryant, they'll fall on power lines and you'll be in, BPU will be involved in it. So therefore, that's why this gets into a policy area and comes to you all for discussion. It's an area where before we would expand, add people, add equipment to do this, it's a decision that you all need to make, and whether that stops here or goes to the full commission again is up to you guys. Doing it in-house would require more people. I would expect that could be a part-time operation. The equipment is, as I stated, is not overly costly, but there are very limited times when you can do this. There's only those 4 months where they recommend treating the trees, and as Kirk so aptly stated, you can still lose the tree even if you do this.
You know, you were saying that the weather's been affecting the mowing. Will weather impact your ability to treat the trees?
I don't believe so. Is that correct, Kirk?
If in the very beginning, if it's a colder spring or a warmer spring, it will move the date a little bit. Not significantly, but it will impact it a little bit.
So what'd you figure out the 2 people for 4 months would be?
I'm going to let Jack answer that.
We haven't yet.
Really? Okay, if you say so.
So a couple of questions. One would be the budget implications on even another part-time position, if I'm understanding. And I guess part of this question would be for staff to help me understand what could we vote on to move forward to the full commission. But secondarily, another piece of what you've brought us is about what we can offer the public in terms of pricing for private property. Would that be correct, that you really have 2 things going on?
That's correct, Commissioner, and well put. The issue of, as it sits right now, according to ordinance, what we would do is go ahead and proceed and take care of the trees that are on UG property, cut down or remove the ones that die that are in the right-of-way, and we would try to put out a program to educate the public and say, this is what's available to you, and this is what it will cost.
And May and June are 2 of the 4 months, is that right?
May and June and September and October.
So do you have ideas in place? I know, Kirk, you're really good at putting together educational materials and marketing. So have you been working on in what way would you market this to the community? And what channels you would use to do that?
We could, yes, I've got a little game plan put together that we could get it out to a lot of the neighborhood groups. And I already, by doing all the surveying, I've got a very good idea of some of the areas that have a large concentration of ash, so I could get a hold of some of the particular neighborhood groups or businesses and let them know. So by doing the surveying, it definitely has helped me to identify the areas that we're at high risk with. But yes, we could put something together. And
So the contractor that's giving us the price break is ready to go?
correct.
Okay, so I guess I have 2 questions. It sounds to me like we're still talking about, is there an item that needs a vote in order to move this forward? And secondarily, a sub-item for agreeing to offer this price break to the residents of Wyandotte County. Am I right on this?
Well, Joe,
I think they're just looking for direction. I don't think it actually has to have a vote. It's an
Okay.
operational item that the county administrator can take care of.
Okay.
But if it seemed like a majority of this committee opposed it, they wouldn't.
Just one more question. And I think Jeff was trying to hit on this. So do our planning and zoning requirements say anything about tree types? And hopefully we're not going to plant any more ash trees because we know what can be caused, but are we doing anything to prevent or encourage people not to plant more of these trees that are so susceptible?
Well, certainly our educational program as we move forward will state that. However, last year there was a tremendous amount of educational information put out in both the Kansas City Star and a number of the other smaller local papers because if you will recall, when the boar was first spotted at Wyandotte County Lake, the Johnson County commissioners were not going to allow us to move our material to the Johnson County landfill. So it did get a lot of publicity at that time, and I would hope that no one was planting ash trees or since that period. There are, though, however, there's quite a number of them out at the Legends. Yes.
Commissioner, in response to your question, the planning and zoning have been told that not to allow any ash trees when they're going through the development review process. And in addition, we will be coming back at another time in the near future. There are allowable street trees in our current street tree ordinance, and one of them is the white ash. So we're going to be coming back, and we've talked with the Kansas forester at K-State, and she has come up with recommendations for some new street trees. So that a new ordinance or an adjustment to the ordinance will be coming sometime in the near future.
Commissioner?
so,
When,
oh,
I'm sorry, Commissioner Kane.
okay, go ahead.
You go, ladies first.
Well, thank you.
This
Oh, I know. Anyway, so then it would be within our scope that we could make recommendations if we agree on them to the full commission that goes along with what you're asking for. So one thing would be to, if we were to ask for 2 people for 4 months, okay, that you give us the numbers with that, okay? When you bring it back, so we know, so everybody knows what's up. And then the other thing is how you plan on handling the number of cut downs you're gonna do, okay, for this. Is that already in the budget? Okay. And then the other thing is that how we want to budget it forward for the next few years, how we see that impacting our budget over the next few years. Like, because these plants are going to be around for a while unless they fall over dead. And then the other thing is when we talk about the cut down, about how many of those trees that you guys did your survey on would end up, falling over and being in our right-of-way that we would have to deal with?
Well, let me start at the first part of your question. An estimate for a budget for 4 people, plus the new equipment and the chemicals required, basically for 6 months, roughly, would be somewhere around $15,000 either way, depending upon the amount of chemical that had to be bought and how soon we could get it in place. Maybe as high as $20,000 at the top end. As far as the trees, there's no way to estimate, how many trees actually would fall. I mean, I guess you could go back to Kirk's number in the report of the trees that are in the right of way. 2,100 ash trees.
Possibly.
Yeah, and again, that's not an exact count, but that's the best number that.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
2,100 would be the high end?
Yes.
I don't know. Just looking at him. He wants to say something.
No, you can't.
Well, I think that out of those 2,100, you're going to have a majority of the people that will take care of their own trees.
Okay.
So I would estimate over 50% of those people would take care of it at the very minimum.
Okay.
So,
Well, you know where they are, so that's why I was asking.
correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kane?
I think what we need to do is tell you guys, go ahead and hire the part-time people, get the equipment, get it going. We don't want to miss the opportunity that we're in right now, the window. And then we'll figure out how to pay for it later because it doesn't sound like it's going to be that high of a deal. But I don't want to miss the 2-month window that we have now. I mean, I think that would be and then they can come back after they got their act together and say, here's how much it is, here's how much we're going to go.
Commissioner Johnson?
On the top end, do you see this being more than $100,000?
Oh, no. No, I wouldn't think that it would be anywhere near that. I'm thinking $20,000 would probably get us through this
In
whole season.
totality for everything?
For this season.
What, that is to treat and to cut down? Or
No,
is that
the estimate on cutting them down,
Right.
there's really no way, I mean, we could set aside a certain amount of money and say, okay, that's your pool to do this. But right now, we don't have a good estimate for that.
Because if I just took the number $400 roughly, we don't know that, and there are, at least in the park, 74 trees. That's roughly about $30,000. So it could potentially be more than that, or is my math off?
The trees in the parks would be in-house, we'd take them down ourselves.
Okay. And the cost to do that would be roughly?
Well, yeah, it's staff time, and we're paying it anyway.
Okay.
Did you have one more thing?
Yeah. And Commissioner, if I could, certain size trees that are in the right-of-way, the street staff can take down. It's the really big trees where we have to go outside and get a contractor. So that's why that $400 number gets in there. It's usually from that dollar amount and above that we try to contract out.
Thank you.
I would make one recommendation, that when you come up with a decided plan for the public and educational piece, discuss with the BPU as a bill stuffer.
Thank you.
Since it's going to affect the BPU if the trees do not get taken care of.
We can do that. And I just want to mention that we have been working with BPU all along
Good.
with Phil Mooser.
Oh, thank you very much.
Jody, do we need to make this a motion, or we just give them direction, or?
You don't have to for direction, I think. But if you'd like to, you can.
All right, why don't
You would
we, I'll
make
make
it-
a motion
make it
that we
clear.
give them this direction to go through with the process, and then we'll figure out the details later.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call?
Roll call, Bryant,
Aye.
Philbrook,
Aye.
Markley,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye. And that motion passes. Thank you, and thank you all for the information, and I guess go treat those ash trees.
And we will come back to you all
Okay.
with a report, and
Great.
thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Item 4 The next item is the blue sheet item, and this is a request to submit a grant application to the Department of Justice to implement the body-worn camera program. We have Kansas City, Kansas Police Chief Ziegler here to present. And
Commissioner?
welcome.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Before they present, just, we discussed this, I guess, a week ago in strategic planning, and the direction we got from you all was that if we had an opportunity to move forward, so that's what they're presenting tonight, is they have an opportunity, and if we get the grant, we'll work it, budget it in. If we don't, we'll tell them we don't have the money.
Okay.
Chief, Deputy Chief?
Good evening. We wanted to come and give you guys an overview, kind of the body-worn camera project. There's been a lot of discussion about it, a lot of inquiries from community groups. So we've started working on this project. We started last year. We've kind of identified a vendor that ties into our current in-car camera video system, which is L3. And just about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, we learned that the federal government's made available some funding to be able to pay for 50% of the camera project. So what I'd like to do is, Colonel Garner's with me this evening, and he's going to go through and give you an overview of the project as we kind of see it rolling out. We think this is a pretty good strategy in implementing this. It gives us adequate coverage so that any officer involved in any type of enforcement activity or contact with the community would be wearing a camera. So I'll turn it over to Colonel Gardner, and I will speak about the grant specifically.
Can everybody hear me? Well, good afternoon. I'm going to briefly talk about our proposal, and it's relative to national trends questioning and demanding improved transparency in regards to police-citizens interactions. Police body cameras offer a technological resource that can better meet the demands of this societal call to action. In response to heightened local awareness from citizens and some of our elected officials for police officers to utilize body cameras, we believe that taking a proactive approach to meeting those growing expectations should be priority for the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. As a means to maintain our organizational standards of keeping in tune with best practices and standards in law enforcement, the purpose of the police body camera proposal is to facilitate an increase in public trust and to provide an improved investigatory tool relative to police-citizen interactions. The police body camera can be an effective tool to gather evidence, enhance managerial oversight, discourage misconduct, and provide a visual perspective when an officer or citizen is accused of engaging in questionable activity. Deploying police body cameras will be a valuable resource our organization can utilize to maintain an improved level of accountability, professionalism, transparency, and an organizational awareness as it pertains to police conduct and the delivery of services to our citizens. Consistently seeking to utilize valuable technological advancements to improve the public trust, perceptions, and expectations, as well as the confidence of our community, will continue to be priority for the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. As the Chief spoke about, our body camera project is going to involve L3 mobile vision. That's currently what we use in our in-car vehicles at this time. There's approximately 19 vehicles that have in-car cameras, so we can have seamless interaction with the technology and the systems. We're looking at sticking with L3 mobile vision. When we talk about police body cameras, we're going to use 2 cameras per district. There's 19 districts in our city. One will be used for charging, and the other will be used for transition during shift change with the officers. Other units that I'll mention here shortly will just have 1 camera and charging station. And currently we're working on a policy at this time, and I'll talk about that a little later in the presentation, as well as submitting a capital project. These are the 19 districts that I talked about. When you talk about 4 patrol stations, when we're talking about East Station, Midtown Station, West Station, as well as South Station. 19 districts, 3 shifts, approximately 174 officers, and that includes relief officers as well that go into manning these 19 districts throughout the city. When we talk about the deployment, we're looking at 148 cameras just for our patrol stations, including the ex-relief positions. When I talk about extra relief, those are the relief officers that are needed to maintain an adequate level of staffing for the delivery of police service during any given time on one of the 3 shifts, as well as 29 community policing camera units, 13 special operations units, which some of you may know as our SCORE unit or our SWAT team, 3 K9 unit cameras, 8 animal control, 14 motorcycle enforcement unit cameras, as well as 20 spare cameras just in case of any type of breakdown or malfunctions. So we're talking about 235 cameras total. This was a spreadsheet that was basically developed, and it's actually a toolkit, and it's automized to basically come up with the figures that you're looking at as far as pricing. And if you look for 2016, in purchasing 235 cameras, and the amount of cameras that are used in a 24-hour period, and then the amount of cameras at that same time by the specialized units, the average number of minutes recorded, which is 360, and then our short-term duration, which is the amount of time that we actually keep video on hand before it's erased over or purged, as well as long-term storage percentage, which we figure to be about 20% looking out into the future. 2017, 2018, we wouldn't do any purchases, but as you can see, ongoing licensing and maintenance still equates to about $15,000 for 2017 and 2018. 2019, to purchase an additional 118 cameras to replace the cameras that we initially purchased, as well again as in 2020 another 117. And those figures are there, they speak for themselves. And basically, those figures tie into the cost of approximately $475 per camera. What's not shown there is that for this project to work effectively and seamlessly with the technology that's out there, fiber will be needed. And the information we got back is that that will be a $520,000 cost to get fiber through the Board of Public Utilities. So the total cost for 1 year is $1,419 for our cameras. President Obama, and I know the chief is going to talk about this here shortly, is offering a grant, and that speaks for itself. Okay, go ahead, Chief.
Here's the highlights of what the president's offering. So he's offering $600,000 match grant to agencies, but there's only going to be 12 of these grants given nationwide, and the stipulation is that you have to be a police department that has somewhere between 250 and 1,000 police officers. So we fall into that category. The cost that they're giving you is basically the federal government said, we're going to give you $1,500 per camera. Now, the federal government realizes that the camera is only about $450, $500, but they're adding in some additional costs to help cover the storage, the licensing, the training, and those things. With this, it's a 50% match, which our project is about $1.4 million, so we wouldn't have a problem matching it. If we were able to get this grant, our cost would be about $800,000. What I'd like to do is just hit real quick on fiber, and I'm not an expert on it, but initially we thought that we were going to get Google Fiber to headquarters and all of our substations. And the reason fiber is so important to this project is currently we don't have a way to transfer video from all of our substations back to headquarters where it's stored. So without that connectivity, there's no way for us to move the video. For example, right now we have in-car video cameras. So we pay a sergeant, he's about a $75,000 employee, in our substations to remove a media card, a media card out of the back of the car, take it down to headquarters, give it to Casey, who's his administrative assistant. She puts it in, downloads it, erases it. Sergeant comes back, picks it up, takes the little media card and puts it back in the camera. It is totally inefficient to do it that way, but that's what we've been doing for the last 10 years. Currently, we have Wi-Fi stations at our headquarters building. So when a patrol car pulls into East Patrol, the car pulls into the basement and everything is automatically downloaded while they're in roll call. Great way to do the video. We have no corruption issue with files doing that. We believe that in order to do this program and do it right, we have to have the fiber. So the reason we looked at BPU was, if we can't get Google, what's another option? And BPU seemed to be the next best option for us. So if you were able to take away the fiber cost, we're looking at about $900,000. And if we were able to get the federal grant, and it was a match, so 50%, we're looking at about $450,000 for this project. That's a big difference. So I just wanted to clarify that. We have to have our grant submissions. Our grant has to be submitted before June 16th.
And I want to back up a little bit, just piggyback off what the chief said. You're looking at these costs, and when you say $475 per camera, and then you look at the total cost that we talked about, the reason why that cost is so high isn't the initial camera, it's the storage. And the storage is basically SAN storage space, which are racks of storage that is going to be needed, and the terabytes that come with that. And so that's really, that infrastructure alone is why the cost to actually implement this camera project is so high. It's just the infrastructure that goes along with the camera, as well as the long-term storage that's required. And we're also looking at the type of camera that L3 has available, which is the vendor. As you can look to your left, standard definition gives you a somewhat cloudy picture. It's literally what you get in our patrol cars. What L3 provides is more of a high definition picture, which gives you more clarity and gives you a better perspective, a visual perspective of what the officer may have been seeing. Here is some of those perspectives. The body camera, as you can see, is something similar to the picture on your top right, which is worn in the middle of your chest. Those are some of the perspectives that you can see that an officer would have with the body camera. Some of the limitations is the camera doesn't follow the officer's eyes, so what the officer may see as far as turning his head is limited by the camera being on his chest. It does give an additional enhanced view of what the officer may have seen, but it doesn't give a 3D total view that the officer may have seen in regards to whatever he may be dealing with on a call. We're also looking at policy considerations. Some of the things we're looking at, and we're really looking at best practices that are out there. When you talk about PERF and the U.S. Department of Justice, some of the things, should the camera be on all the time? Those are policy considerations that we're taking into account. What things should the officer record? Should he get consent from victims? Should the officer have to articulate on camera or in writing why he failed or did not turn on his camera? And then clearly identifying under which circumstances, in cooperation with our union, on when supervisors can review what is picked up by the camera, basically to audit the officers. And then training is going to be key to anything that we roll out in concert with the body cameras and our policy. And so those are things that we're looking at, and those are things that are going to be forthcoming. The value, again, I mentioned earlier, but when you look at Raleigh Police Department, which is in California, they've used body cameras, and here are some of the impact that they've had when you talk about use of force complaints and just complaints overall. And this was issued in U.S. News and World Reports. As you can see, it's gone down since the implementation of body cameras. And I'm open for any questions.
Other questions?
I have a question about sustainability. I was looking at the cost, and it looks like there's about a 3-year period where after the initial investment, it's not too bad, but then it starts rising again, which I'm guessing is replacement.
Yes.
So what, how sustainable would this program be for long-term? Same way with the historical storage. I saw the initial investment, but with all servers, they have a lifespan. Maintenance of the system and the body units, you know, when one gets broken, the replacement costs, and then the manpower to manage the historical records.
Okay, so let me start with the last question.
Sure.
Well, currently we have one administrative assistant who has other duties in the Bureau of Operations, but she does manage all of the in-car video camera requests that come in. It's a tedious process when something's tagged as evidence, but we would put this as one of her responsibilities. I do have some personnel inventory numbers, one in particular that I would probably look and submit to the county administrator to be reclassified. I think this is going to be a huge impact on the police department with the number of videos, and I think that it will require a full-time position. The cost of this program goes into perpetuity. It goes forever. Every 3 years, you're going to have, every third and fourth year, you're going to spend $100,000. Every year, we'll spend $15,000 for license and service agreements. As long as we're constantly replacing them, all the cameras should be under warranty all the time. One problem that we ran into with our in-car video camera project was the cameras go out of service. We didn't renew our contracts. We didn't replace them. So in the first part of 2014, we began taking them out of the patrol cars because we just didn't have funding to keep it going. And I would recommend that if this is something that we're allowed to move forward, it would be, we need to make sure that it's properly funded every year. If not, it will become a program that's broken, and we will lose evidence. The public will begin to expect it, and I think it would be bad business if we didn't plan on this being a long-time investment for the unified government.
Any questions, Commissioner Kane?
Do you think we need them?
I would tell you that I think that they would be valuable to the police department. I think that any time that we have a shooting, a use of force, an internal affairs complaint, and we could get a perspective of what the officer was seeing, I think that's good. We do know from the research that's been done that use of force goes down and complaints go down. Officers' conduct is improved as well as citizens' conduct is improved. So I think that they are valuable. They do have a place in law enforcement, yes.
I guess this is kind of a around the horn thing. We can apply for this, and then if we sit down as a group and realize we can't pay our half, then we could decline the grant. Is that right?
Yes, we did the COPS grant that way. We applied for it, realized that there was some funding issues. We notified the federal government, withdrew our application.
And I think that's what we should do here.
And thank you for that, because I wanted to clarify before I asked if there was public comment or question that what we're being asked for tonight is to move approval to the full commission to apply for the grant.
Correct.
Okay.
And then as we were going through our budget, we could figure out if we could pay for it. But if we don't apply for it, we're not going to get it.
That's right. Yes.
Someone in administration, please tell me someone's going to call Google and ask about the fiber.
We've been in constant communication with Google about this site and some of the other sites that were promised, and we're working through those legally now, and so I don't think that's totally off the table. But for his planning purposes, he has to, you know, let you guys know what the program costs as it stands today, and that's what it would be today.
And just one more thing I'd like to add. Senate House Bill 18, if you're interested in reading it, if that was to pass, it does make it mandatory that law enforcement agencies in the state of Kansas will have a body-worn camera project, for what it's worth.
And then they're going to tell us how we're going to pay for it.
Exactly.
That'll be your problem. What else?
Any other comments or questions from the commissioners?
I just believe with Commissioner Kane that we should move this on right in front of the
Second.
full commission.
Is that a motion
Yeah.
and a second?
Yes.
Roll call?
Roll call, Bryant.
Would you have to ask for public?
So I do have a point of order question, because there is an opportunity for public comment.
You can go ahead and
If
ask
there's
for
a
it and
member
then
of the
repeat
public
motion.
that has a question or would like to make a comment, you can come forward. If not, we'll proceed with roll call on the motion. Want to make a comment? Certainly. Please tell us your name and
Janet
your city of
Galupski.
residency.
5349 Webster Avenue, Kansas City, Kansas. Couple things. Yes, I am all for this. I've talked with my group, and you know, with the Ferguson deal and the other areas in the country, we are definitely all for it. I think it would be a good deal for our police department to have it back up for anything that's going on. Secondly, I'm glad Commissioner Barkley brought up Google, because I worked my tail off to get Google in my neighborhood on the assumption that by Station 18s would be covered. They would also have Google. And my church, Christ the King, the school would have Google Fiber. And neither one have done that yet. And I'm in the process, too, of getting with Google and trying to figure that out. So I think that you should still work with Google and try to figure out if that's going to be a cheaper route to go than to BPU. And my other question was, grant. When we get the grant from President Obama, would this be an ongoing grant? We could get every 3 or 4 years, or is it just a one-time only grant?
Currently, it's a 3-year grant in order to help police departments implement the body-worn camera project. After that, it's up to the individual departments to sustain the program as it's written now.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. Thank you, Chief, for bringing that up and going for the grant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Marcia Rabb, 2816 North 46th Street. I just want to say that I think this is something that we need not overlook. We really need to think about this because this is so important. We have seen what has happened on the news to all of the communities. It affects everyone that's involved, not just the police department and the community, but the businesses, everyone. So let's just, as the commercial says, let's get it done.
Thank you. Any other comment or question from the public? If not, we have a motion and a second, and we'll have roll call.
Roll call, Bryant,
Aye.
Philbrook,
Aye.
Markley,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And our last item of business is an update of the goals for the Animal Control Oversight Committee. And I know we have Jenny Myers from legal, and Jenny, you can introduce who's with you. Thank you.
I'm Jenny Myers with legal. I have Katie Bray Barnett, and then Captain Michelle Angel with the police department.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you all for having us again. I think this is the 3rd or 4th time we've been here, but we're going to keep coming until we get this city safe and humane. I am here right now to give the presentation on the Animal Control Oversight Committee and the update on the strategic plan that we've been working on. As an aside, today marks the first day of National Dog Bite Prevention Week. We don't have any events planned this week in Kansas City, Kansas, but hopefully next year we'll get something planned and we'll have some mass education on keeping people safe from dog bites. The Animal Control Oversight Committee was formed, I believe, 1.5 years ago to address some of the concerns of the public and city staff on animal issues. And we involved several stakeholders at that time. We met several times to draft an animal control ordinance that would achieve the goal of a safer, more humane community. Just move this over here. And so after we enacted the ordinance, we also added a few people to the committee, and the committee continued to meet because it's important that we continue on this process. The ordinance changes aren't going to change everything. So we added the Humane Society of Greater Kansas City was already there. Unleashed Pet Rescue, which is a nonprofit organization that takes a lot of the animals from the animal shelter, animal control, and adopts them out through their organization, so the burden is not on the city or animal control to get those dogs adopted out and cats. And then we added Spay and Neuter Kansas City. Spay and Neuter Kansas City is opening up a location over here on the Kansas side. Currently, they're on the Missouri side with a contract with the city of Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri. They do a lot of outreach, and they also provide food pantry and resources for the most underserved communities. So those people who really need the help to maintain their pet, so that pet isn't impounded just because of neglect, because they didn't have a dog house, and that was all that they needed. They're also teaming up with the Humane Society of Greater Kansas City to offer vaccination clinics. I'm sure you guys are aware of the food deserts that exist in some of the areas of Kansas City, and it's the same with veterinary clinics. So those people who really would get help for their pet are unable to seek any kind of care or treatment because there's no veterinary clinic. It's all on the west side. There's nothing really in the heart of Kansas City, Kansas. So if you come to them, if you go into the neighborhoods and provide that service to them, you'll achieve a higher ratio of wellness for those pets and those people. And that's kind of what the Oversight Committee is hoping to do. We also added the Public Information Office. They've been coming to our meetings because it's important that we're disseminating all of the new information and all of the changes that we're making, so people are aware of not only the ordinance changes but the policy changes and the small successes we have every month or every few months. We're making a difference, and we want the public to know what we're doing. So hopefully we'll have a little bit more aggressive approach in the dissemination of our information to the public. The mission of the Animal Control Oversight Committee we came up with is we want to achieve a healthy, safe, and humane community, and that's what we're going to work towards over the next 12 to 18 months. We've met several times since our last meeting here, which I think was in November or December. We've continued to meet after the ordinance passed, and we will continue to meet because there's still a community need. So the community need is there, and it's evident by the survey that was given. I'm sure you guys are all aware of the results of the survey, but most importantly, animal control ranked #1 in the importance to satisfaction rating, meaning it was high importance and low satisfaction with the general public, which made it the top public safety priority, or a very high priority, as your analysts noted. So what we worked on last year were ordinance changes, and we got that done. But now we need to work on training for animal control, making sure they have the proper training and education and tools that they need to be effective in the community. We need to work on policy and budget changes at animal control, and then we'll start to work on public education. And maybe by this time, Dog Bite Prevention Week next year, we'll have a plan in place and we'll be out there educating the public. So those are the 3 things that we're hoping to work on between the next 12 to 18 months. And these recommendations, I know a few of you have seen this slide a couple times, but these recommendations are not just animal welfare organization recommendations, and they're not just recommendations made by animal control or city staff. These are recommendations made by the professionals and the subject matter experts in the field of animal control, public safety, and humane treatment of animals. And those are the guidelines we're hoping to follow. The recommendations are coming from these organizations, but they're targeted. They're brought up by the community. That's whose interests we're working for. I know this is a long list of goals, but it's taken several months for the committee to narrow down what exactly we're going to do and the goals that we want to achieve. We obviously want to track our data and report it. We also are hoping to do an annual residential survey, and I'll get to some of the things that we'll cover shortly. We want to have an increase in vaccinated pets and general wellness, because that's important. Vaccinating your pets, although we haven't had a rabies outbreak in quite some time, it is critical to vaccinate pets because they are the only barrier between rabies and a raccoon or a squirrel or whatever animals carry rabies. All of those additional wild animals, they're the only barrier between those wild animals and us. So vaccinating your pets is still critical. We want to increase outdoor activity. We really want to work on the Mayor's Healthy Communities Initiative, increase the outdoor activity and prepare, and I think that's kind of a subsection of that, is prepare and execute a plan for all of the roaming dogs and decrease the amount of roaming dogs in the community. We want to have a measurable use of the Free Ride Home program and decrease animal impounds, and I'll talk about that also. A decrease in community cats, which we talked about when we when you all passed the community cat trap, neuter, and return ordinance, and increase the number of animal control officers in the field, increase adoptions from animal control, like I said, training for not just animal control, but law enforcement in general. Law enforcement and the police department should help in prosecuting felony animal cruelty cases. Collecting evidence, a lot of the animal control officers aren't necessarily trained on some of those critical roles, so if we can get the information to the police department and officers in the field, that could help. And then also training for prosecutors and city staff to enhance prosecution of animal-related crimes. We also want to increase community engagement, and we've done that already by adding several community partners. We want to increase same-day response time on animal control calls, prepare and disseminate information on ordinances, general safety, and animal welfare, measure the impact of the ordinance change instead of just enacting it and hoping everything goes well. We really want to take a look at what changed and how is it affecting the community and is it effective. And increased revenue from hopefully increased licensing of animals. And then we really want to round out safe routes for schools and humane education for the schools in the community. So how are we going to reach those goals? These are metrics that we hope to track monthly, quarterly, and annually. Obviously, the demographics, how the city is growing, how the pet population is growing, animals licensed, animal intake, animal outcome, which means the animals that come through the shelter and the animals that leave the shelter in whatever disposition. The number of reported animal bites. You all approved a nuisance animal portion of the animal control ordinance, so we'd like to see how that goes. Is that preventing or preempting dog bites and dangerous dog encounters as we were hoping? How many people are being cited for that? How many people are convicted? Same with dangerous animals, vicious animals. And then we want to know how many, with the community partners, animal neglect calls we're getting. Are we getting convictions on the new tethering ordinance that we suggested and was approved? And then how many early forfeiture petitions are filed and awarded in criminal cases where the animals have been seized and they're just awaiting disposition? When we can get those animals out into a rescue, we can get early forfeiture just like you would on other property seized. The number of pet limit permits issued, and I think you guys can kind of see all the other, the number of hours of training that are done, and then the three issues we're hoping to address in the community survey annually, neighborhood vaccination clinics, as I mentioned, and then the number of attendees to all of the different humane education programs. So we fortunately have some data from Kansas City, Missouri, from Kansas City Pet Project, who faced a similar kind of conundrum several years ago. And you can see from the chart in 2006 and 2007, the city was issuing incentives and they were giving quotas for the number of citations issued by animal control officers. So you saw a rise in the impound of animals coming through the shelter. With a new change in 2008 of their animal control director, some of that changed. But also what we saw, similar to when Captain Angel took over, is they wanted to decrease the euthanasia numbers. And so they kind of reduced the number of animals they were taking in by saying, we're not going to take owner surrenders, and if you found a dog, you need to prove that you found it within the city. And several other limitations instead of just taking everything that people brought into the shelter, like an open admission shelter. And the result of that was that people didn't want to go through the rigmarole of surrendering a pet and signing their name and all of that stuff and several other issues. But then the animal impounds decreased, and we saw a high number of free-roaming feral dogs and cats in the city, which is maybe familiar to what you guys are seeing now. So they noticed a problem, they wanted to address it. They contracted with KC Pet Project, which is a private shelter, and that's not something that the city, is my understanding, is not interested in doing, but they noticed a problem and they sought help, and they went in a different direction. And I think that Captain Angel and Jenny will talk to you all a little bit today about changing direction here, the unified government. And they saw a huge increase in animal impounds. And that comes from a couple things. It's a positive change to have, when you enlist positive change and you enlist help, people start to trust your animal shelter and people start to feel comfortable bringing their animals there. And what you see is a higher rate of animal surrenders or owner surrenders to those animal shelters.
So we have a lot of data that shows what we can expect over the next 12 to 18 months and the next 5 years. The data that they have shows, I think, a 39% increase above 2012 intake and a 56% increase in 2011 intake. So you're going to see more animals impounded, and we need to have a plan for that if we're going to be an effective animal control agency. And so we have all that information, and the owner surrenders, it's gone up 255%. Of cats at least, and there are a couple important distinctions though between Kansas City, Kansas and Kansas City, Missouri. There are several distinctions, but a couple of important ones that affect this. Kansas City, Kansas still has a ban on pit bull type dogs, and Kansas City, Kansas also has mandatory spay-neuter of all animals. So those are two important distinctions that may contribute to a little bit of a different take here, and we won't know until we try. Importantly, Kansas City, Kansas now has enacted a way of dealing with community cats or feral cats, which Kansas City, Missouri is still spinning their wheels on. So we might see a not so high of an increase in community cats and cat intake as the city of Kansas City, Missouri has seen. So the fun stuff here, resources and revenue. We hope to see increased licensing revenue from raising the pet limit, and then here you can all just read the resources and revenue we expect. In the expenditures that we expect over the next 18 months, unfreeze and fund 2 additional field officers. As some of you may remember, we are highly understaffed in the animal control division. There are supposed to be, I believe, 21 animal control officers for a city the size of Kansas City, Kansas, and there are 7 currently. So there should be more officers in the field and more officers at the shelter, but a solution that has been brought to the attention of the Animal Control Oversight Committee is to hire 2 to 3 kennel technicians at animal control versus hiring a full-time animal control officer. Those officers who are trained should be out in the field. And then, as I said, we'll probably see a temporary increase in impoundment of stray and feral dogs. We need to have some formal education and training for animal control officers and updated animal control equipment to increase efficiency. And I just left this one in here from last time because this is something that Captain Angel was able to do. And so I'll let you explain all of the good things that you guys have done. So the intended result is a healthy, safe, and humane Kansas City, Kansas. You'll notice that that's not a unified government employee, that's a Lawrence Police Department officer, and we want to change that. We want all of these officers who have the compassion and the drive and the dedication to helping the animals in this community to have a public face, and we need to do a much better job of showing their compassion and their dedication to this community. So we hope to have pictures and really work with the PIO on getting a positive change going with animal control in the image.
Go next.
Okay, as some of you may know, as Chief Ziegler took over, he had the idea to bring in a civilian manager for animal control so that we would have consistency down there. Also, when we're looking at that, we're looking at hiring somebody who has experience, who has turned around shelters. They can bring in their expertise, and we can really move forward at a quicker pace than we have here in the past. So we have, during the last week, been interviewing for that position. We have at least one that is qualified that we're going to continue through the process, and we are definitely dedicated to bringing the right person on board. So if it's not in this process, we'll look again. But I think that will be a positive move for our community to get somebody with experience and somebody that has a vision and can really bring our city up to date and above and beyond maybe some of the other cities in the metro area. Some of the things that we have accomplished in this last year since we brought on the advisory board, first of all was the ordinance changes that have been mentioned. We've also done a lot of shelter updates at the shelter that's brought us up into the state compliance so that we are passing our inspections. We have brought the Humane Society on as our contract vet, and have a surgical suite on-site at animal control so that they're able to spay and neuter the animals that we move over to our adoption, which saves us money because we're paying an hourly vet bill versus a by the spay neuter. That has helped us increase our numbers of adoptable animals, and we've increased adoption numbers through that process and saved money. So that's been very positive. The Humane Society being down there also helps us because they're in and out of our facility almost daily. So there's nothing to hide. We've been very translucent. They're able to dispel myths that we're hiding things and killing dogs that we're not reporting and that kind of thing. So that's been very helpful in what the other animal welfare agencies in our metropolitan area think about our shelter, and it makes them more willing to try to assist us as we move forward with some of these projects like Katie mentioned with the Spay Neuter KC and trying to do some of these clinics for our poverty level areas that can't afford to take care of their pets. They're already out here doing outreach in our city along with Unleashed Pet Rescue. They're going out there weekly and finding locations of people that just need a little bit of assistance, sometimes just a little bit of guidance on what proper pet care is, and it is definitely helping us. We hope to really expand on that and educate our citizens that it's not proper to let your dog run the neighborhood, and that they need to be put up and they need to have their shots and be licensed and that kind of thing. We also want to look at doing the online pet registration so that saves a person a trip down to animal control. During the past year, we purchased Chameleon software that has a dispatch component to it, so we'll be able to better track, again, what these updated policies and ordinances will be doing. We'll have better resources to go back and look at. All of the animal control officers out in the field have tablets. They have wireless connectivity to the software. So as this data is implemented, obviously it will be better a year from now than it is today because they'll have data to draw from. But if they go out, they'll be able to pull up the history of the location that they're at and code the offense correctly. Because we were seeing time and time again somebody that got 3 or 4 tickets for the same thing, but they were never upped in the violation. You know, it was always a first-time offense because it was different officers seeing that. Another thing we'd like to do is if we can get a couple more animal control officers, we would like to go back to where we have them stationed in East Patrol and the East Station and the Midtown Station, so that right now they go all over the place. So I know that we're losing out on drive time. I'd rather them have an area that's a little bit smaller, that they would have less drive time, hopefully get to know the community, be more engaged because they've got a smaller area that they're responsible for, and see what that does. But that's going to take more officers, unfortunately, than what we have now. Also with our Chameleon software, it just kind of went live last week. I got to look at it for the first time today. On PetHarbor.com, our citizens will be able to go to that website and they can kind of put in some parameters, or they can view every single animal we have in our shelter. Wichita saw a 15% increase in owner reclaims when they brought this on board. So we're hoping that that will assist people because they can look right there instead of just calling in and saying, I have a black and brown dog, do you have it? They can actually go on there and take a look. So we'll see what that gives us in results over the next year. But I'm excited. I think it's going to help us. I really do.
And then finally, we are in the process of contract negotiations with Katie. And Katie's going to handle some of the in-house training for the animal control officers. We've looked at, training is very important, that they know the law, they understand it. We've looked at training. The problem is a lot of it is not in state, so that's travel expenses, and we don't have enough animal control officers to waste them, to let them go to training for a few days. So by being able to provide it in-house with Katie's expertise, it'll give our officers credibility in the field. make sure we're doing it right to get rid of any potential liability we may have. And also in the courts, it'll give them a little bit more credibility. Katie can also help train maybe the prosecutors in municipal court. As Captain Angel was saying, sometimes it gets lost, the first conviction, second conviction. But we also know with the court system, sometimes the prosecutors might miss out on that too. And we increase the penalties and the severity of the fines. So we want to make sure that those are being upheld in court. So she can work with municipal court, the prosecutors. She's also already arranged for training of the district attorney's office, which is unheard of, really, that for animal control at the felony level. So, and then she's also going to work on securing grants for us that will help with all of these. So we are in the process of that also.
So Katie's busy.
Katie's very busy.
Commissioners, any questions or comments? Any at all?
Sure, I'm going.
There's no way that I can express my gratitude. These ladies are, they are really the backbone of this standing committee, that we've put together. And Katie has a nice way. She's so sweet about cracking the whip. And Captain Angel is so nice about telling the commissioner back off. She's good. And yeah, and poor Jenny. She has been through the ringer on this thing, and I just want to thank her for all the hard work. We've only gotten 2 types of animals taken care of so far. We have 2 more rounds to go. The next, please help us, anybody that wants to join the committee, to deal with chickens and rabbits. And then the next one after that will be the larger animals. So, it's just a never-ending process, but it's something that has to be taken care of. And we appreciate your hard work. And I know sometimes it can be kind of boring for everybody else to listen to. But if you have an animal, that's ever been picked up, or you've had someone bitten by a dog or attacked, all of this comes very, very close to you. So thank you.
Anyone else? This item was for information, and we appreciate very much your time and all of the information and updates you brought. Thank you. And that concludes our meeting. Thank you for your attendance. We are adjourned.
5 minutes, gang?
Yep. Sounds good.
I believe Janet did bring a bucket of snacks she comes. She's coming. All right, are we ready? Is my film crew ready? We're good? All right, I will now call the meeting of the Administration and Human Services Standing Committee to order. We want to welcome everyone to this meeting. Public comment is welcome. Anyone wishing to speak on any item on the Standing Committee agenda may do so when the item is up for discussion. You will have up to 3 minutes to state your comments. Please come forward to the microphone and you will be recognized. For accurate recording purposes, we ask all present to speak directly into a microphone. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call. Philbrook.
Here.
Kane.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Bynum. Here. Markley.
Here. Next, we have the minutes from our February 17th and March 16th meetings.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The minutes have been approved. We do have a blue sheet item for this agenda as well. If you didn't get a copy, I have them up here next to me. This will be added as agenda item number 8. That takes us to our committee agenda. Item number 1 is a request to subcontract with the Community Health Council to participate on a project to prevent various health issues. Terry Breckeisen, our Public Health Director, is here to present this item. Welcome, Terry.
Thank you. This is a $42,000 grant for the first year. It does not cost the unified government anything. There's no match involved. And we will be working with the Community Health Council on their ambitious program that they've got going. We will be providing a couple of objectives for them, and we'll be working on those, particularly a worksite wellness program, and then also doing a parks audit to help with signage for the walking trails and the other activities that are available in the park. And then the second and third and fourth year, we'll be getting 60% of the $42,000 to continue working in these, particularly in these 2 areas.
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion has been made and seconded. Roll call.
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bynum. Aye. Markley.
Aye. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Item number 2 is a request to move forward to amend code to allow food trucks on a short-term basis, presented by Rob Richardson. Welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner, other commissioners. We've had requests from various folks around the community to make greater use of food trucks in the community. Our ordinances were really established to deal with street vendors and not food trucks in their current iteration, where it's a specialized kind of high-end market. It's not the trucks that we used to see in front of General Motors, the silver trucks that sold sandwiches out of the back. This is a different animal, and so folks in Fairfax, Argentine, downtown shareholders, and others have talked about using food trucks for different purposes, and potentially even a daily food truck location in Fairfax. So we need to amend our code, and this would allow me to work with my staff, move this forward to Planning Commission. I will say, related to this amendment and several others tonight, I'm going to take these on over the next year. We won't be doing them all in the next month or so, but I wanted to do all the authorizations at one time so that we could start working on those throughout the year when we have time.
Questions?
Well, just a comment. Back when I was single, those food trucks were quite handy.
Yes, sir.
At General Motors. Do we need a motion?
I don't know. So you think this is a really great idea, and you're kind of liking some of this? I've heard some good feedback, but I'm just asking you.
I think it is a good part of our community. It adds interest and variety to the community. I mean, they're not cheap. I mean, you know, we've had some, and you know, lunch is $10. I was kind of surprised the first time I went to one, and you know, I was expecting something a little less costly, but there is quite a, when they've had them downtown, there's been quite a line.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second have been made. Roll call and motion.
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Bynum. Aye. Markley.
Aye. Item number 3 is a request similarly to move forward to amend code to place limitations on new dollar stores, also presented by Rob Richardson.
Thank you. I think we're all aware of the significant increase in the dollar stores we've had in the community. In some respects, it's nice. We've built nice new buildings. In some respects, some folks think that they present other issues to our community. And we want to look at those and potentially limit the number of those within the community. And how they're defined. I mean, there's some issues with this and how they're defined and what we will use to define those. And so that it really only affects the low end of the retailers, because it's kind of a general retail establishment. It's not really a grocery store. It's not, and I think there are some issues that we'll have as we move forward, but authorization will allow us to move forward and develop an ordinance and present it to Planning Commission and then move it forward to you all.
Okay. Commissioner Kane?
Before I make a motion, I agree with you 100%. They need to clean their act up, and from one end of town to the other. You know, you drive by the one on 18th Street, I drive by every day, and once in a great while it looks nice. So I think what you're asking for is for your program to have teeth to fix the problem.
Well, they definitely have a landscape maintenance and a trash pickup issue and a general conditions issue within our community. They are not a good example for other retailers, and it is difficult to support them as they move forward for other applications when they don't keep their existing properties up to code.
Commissioner Philbrook?
Well, I'm guessing that another reason for not wanting to have them is because they have a tendency to be in areas where people don't have a chance to get healthy foods. They just have a chance to get this kind of prepackaged stuff, you know, and that's not really doing our community justice, I don't believe. So I've heard that too.
Move for approval for staff to make the proper recommendations to fix the issue that some of those places have.
Second, and then
I just wanted to know, are we going to bring some uniformity? Is the motivation to bring uniformity to those establishments in terms of the limitations or the things that you might be pitching to move forward?
I think that one is just the sheer volume of them. We've approved several of them recently. There's a couple more that are still under construction, notably the old ball store at 45th or 47th and Parallel. And they've all been fraught with issues when they were in a planned zoning district and they actually had a public hearing. Some of them have not been, and they just kind of happen because they meet the code and they can do that. But as we're in the middle of this process, there's Wall Street Journal articles about one company trying to buy the other, and then what happens to do they keep all the stores, or do we have a bunch of vacant stores, and how does that impact our community? We're having them built, the new stores are being built to our commercial design guidelines so that if they do go away, somebody else will be proud to be in that building. It's not the old metal building with a sign stuck on the front of it. They're nice buildings, and if we needed medical services and a doctor wanted to move in, the new Dollar Generals and Family Dollar stores especially are very nice, high quality stores that could be used for other purposes.
Well, my challenge with that, and I think we should move forward with this. I agree with the motion. Is that they are providing a service that other retailers have avoided doing in the urban core, and though they're not the best, they are providing something, particularly for persons that don't have the ability to have transportation to get to where they're wanting to go. So I hope it's not too stringent, but I do believe that we need to clean up, that they need to be clean and uniform in terms of how we move forward.
Commissioner Bynum?
I just want to echo Commissioner Johnson. There's a brand new one at 81st and Leavenworth Road that I did not want to see. I didn't like that they were tearing down my hamburger stand. I didn't think we needed another Family Dollar, but I've been there 12 times since they opened, and I agree that they are providing a service. So if the intent of the change here is to sort of place limitations, I can agree with that, but I do think they are providing a retail opportunity where others have not, and serving a segment of our population that still has a real need to shop in these kinds of places. So
Yeah, there won't be a ban, but there might be portions of the community that wouldn't get any more.
Additional comments or questions? We did have
So this is gonna move, I mean, is this gonna be detailed in terms of when it moves forward to the full commission?
Yes, sir. We'll prepare an ordinance that details how we would address them, how they're defined, and what the limitations would be and how we would, calculate those limitations, because it could be a pure number in an area, it could be a distance. There's a lot of ways to do that, and we haven't done the research on how we would do that yet. But when it comes forward, it'll be a fully detailed ordinance amendment within the zoning code.
All right, a motion, I believe, is on the table, and we will do roll call.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Bynum. Aye. Markley.
Aye. We'll see how you balance all of those interests. Item number 4 is a request to move forward to amend code regarding automotive land uses.
This began with a request from Commissioner Walker concerning used car sales. Used car dealers tend to pick a low-end, potentially commercial site. Maybe it's an old residence on a primary thoroughfare and open a used car shop without regard to the neighbors. And so I also felt like there were other issues where we have those same, other uses that we have those same concerns with, including used tire sales and tire service, some auto mechanic locations, and auto body repair. And so when these are not associated with a new car dealer, when they generally have a up-to-date facility and meet the manufacturer standards for how they run and operate their facility, that it would be good for those to be done by special use permit so that the Board of Commissioners could review those and make sure that they're appropriate for the location that's being selected in the community.
Questions and comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
That was your first motion, wasn't it? Congratulations. Was a move and second.
In Topeka, they would clap for you.
Very good. Roll call on the motion.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Bynum. Aye. Markley.
Aye. Item number 5 is a request to amend the floodplain ordinance by changing the dates of our approved flood maps.
Every time that FEMA updates one of our flood maps now, they require that our ordinance be updated to include the specific date of that map and when it was adopted. This is a routine item for action to comply with FEMA regulations so that we could receive FEMA funding should we need it.
Questions or comments?
Yeah, real quickly. So will this give you automatic capability to do this once you get it past, or do you have to ask for this every time?
The way that FEMA operates, we have to ask for this every time.
All right, so moved.
I agree.
Your first second. Motion has been made and seconded. Roll call.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Bynum. Aye. Markley.
Aye. Item number 6 is an amendment to the allowed residential accessory ordinance.
Thank you. We dealt with this, the location where this arose in the historic preservation ordinance a few months ago, related to folks adding onto their properties and what really is an allowed accessory use to the home. So the home is the primary use on the piece of property, and then a detached garage or a storage shed or a pool or something like that would be a pool house, could be an accessory structure or an accessory use. You know, having domestic animals would be an accessory use and things like that. You have before you the actual proposed ordinance in this case, where we amend the definition slightly, and then the items are highlighted in yellow. What can be stored at a residential location, and really speaking to the nature of it, it's a residential use. It's not a commercial use that can be part of that residential structure. And so with your approval, we would move this to Planning Commission for a public hearing, and then back to you all for to consider the Planning Commission recommendation and any other public testimony that would come before you.
So moved.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call on the motion.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Bynum. Markle.
Aye. Item number 7 is an update on urban billboard removal.
Thank you. As you're aware, we modified our sign code to allow for digital billboards recently, and we've had our first 6 applications. One of the key criterias of that was that if a company were going to install a new digital billboard, they would have to remove existing billboard space to allow that. So with those 6 new digital billboard applications, we have identified 60 signs that will be removed by the 2 companies that have applied for the 6 permits.
How many?
60.
Yeah, there's a lot of small ones.
There are a lot of the urban small boards. There are some of the interstate boards that are going to come down, 3 of those, but most of them are urban boards. And I have listings of all of those. If you all are interested in the actual specifics of that, I can
Well,
provide
yeah,
that by
I'll
email.
ask you about one.
Yes.
One at about 5300, 5400 State Avenue, right next to, was it Dollar General or whatever that is? On the north side?
5300 State Avenue, east and west. They're 6 by 12 boards.
Yep.
Those are both coming down.
Rob, do you think you could provide that by email to the commissioners? Particularly, I think Commissioner
Yeah.
Walker would be interested.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all of us need it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll prepare this in a memo format with all the boards. There are 3 signs at least that are already down. There were signs at 7th and Central, 18th in Minnesota, and 635 in Speaker that are already down. The 7th and Central and 18th in Minnesota were 2 that had the ire of particular commissioners, and so the sign companies targeted those first, and they're down already. And the one at 635 in Speaker Road, that lease was up, so they went ahead and took it down with the lease expiration. So they have 60 days to remove these signs from the date of the permits. So these 60 signs should be down by mid-July. And hopefully our community will look better because a lot of those have maintenance issues.
Are those signs generating any income for those businesses? Do you know if that own those? Are they gonna be torn down?
I think that the 14 by 48s on the interstate that Lamar is taking down, I would say certainly generate some amount of income for them. A lot of the urban boards, if you look at them, they're not-for-profit folks that are on those that probably they're doing that and receiving some kind of tax break for their donation of that space.
Or a very small business.
Right, they're not lucrative especially compared to the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars the digital billboard would generate.
Other questions? This item is for information only. Item number 8 is the blue sheet item. It's a request to approve the grant application with Downtown Shareholders as a designated administrative agent or third-party designee, authorizing the county administrator to sign related documents. And once again, Rob is presenting this item.
Thank you. Downtown Shareholders applied for a historic resources survey, which would allow them to survey our downtown community, basically from their service area, which is Washington to Armstrong, 18th to 3rd, basically. It varies from that a little bit, but you get the general idea there. For historic resources that could be rehabilitated or reused with historic tax credits from the state and federal government, or that might need a further designation for protection of that resource if it was important to the community. They were awarded this grant. However, there was a condition that the city, and the city is a certified local government from the state of Kansas for historic preservation purposes, that we would be the grant requester. That raised a little bit of concern for me because these are highly intensive administrative grants to manage. And we had done one for Strawberry Hill 2 years ago, I believe, and it was really disturbing the amount of administrative time that we had to put into that grant. And I'd asked Strawberry Hill not to apply for another one until I was fully staffed and we had the ability to do that. And so Downtown Shareholders had assured me that I wouldn't be involved in that, but the state changed their mind. The state did, however, come up with a new provision that allows us to designate them as our contractor, and then the state will contract directly with them and get us out of the administrative responsibilities for that. I'm all for that, and I will suggest that Strawberry Hill pursue a similar, and anybody else that wants to do one of these pursue a similar strategy. It's great information to have now, but there's no cost to us. There's no staff time for us. We will, participate as needed through downtown shareholders, but I think it's a great opportunity for them and a way to find more funding for some of our downtown buildings.
Questions, comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Very good. Roll call on the motion.
Roll call, Philbrook,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Bynum. Aye. Markey.
Aye. And then, because Rob Richardson has spent his whole evening with us, he is next on the agenda under our measurable goals to discuss urban planning and land use goals.
Thank you. I have 3 major goals this year that all deal with customer service. So I'd like to go through those, review each of those with you, and talk about how each of those will be measured. The first goal is to help small businesses succeed in the development process. I'm sure that most of you have heard that it's hard to get through the planning and zoning process. It's a complicated process, even for those of us that work in it every day. I mean, we get questions on a weekly basis that we can't just answer off the top of our head. It takes research and reading the code and talking to the legal staff. And so we want to make sure that our small businesses that don't have the resources to hire their own attorneys to make sure that they get through the process efficiently so that they can do that. We want them to know how to achieve their desired result, even if the question that they ask isn't the right question. I mean, a lot of times they'll ask us a question and it's not necessarily the right question that they need to ask. And so we need to get them to ask the right question or tell them the right question to ask and then answer that for them. Sometimes we need to advise them that they ought to seek a development representative because the process might be more complex than they could handle on their own. Sometimes they ask, sometimes they don't. Make the DRC available and aware of small business issues because the Development Review Committee works with a lot of things that are even outside the regular planning and zoning process, whether it be Public Works and Engineering or the Fire Department, BPU, building inspections. And so Trey Mavers in my office will be full-time this week. He's been part-time as he finished graduate school in planning, but he'll be full-time starting this week. And he coordinates that process, and so we will be working through the DRC. As we start to do this, I think we're going to identify gaps in our abilities as a government to help small business, and identification of those will be important so that we can identify solutions for those in the future. One of those that we think there might be, and it wouldn't necessarily be specifically only to the development process, but the city previously has had an ombudsman that would help folks and kind of be there, not necessarily like an attorney for them, but at least help them to understand the process and would know the process enough to know that they were getting a fair shake and that it could help them a little bit in that process. To do this, well, let me talk about measurability of all of them later. The second goal is to identify and address customer complaints quickly. Sometimes I found that a customer might have a complaint, but I don't hear about it until it's just at the boiling point. So sometimes that's my fault. Sometimes it's my staff or somebody else's staff. But at least we want to identify those quickly. When complaints are communicated to me, I'll speak to that person directly, and that's kind of current procedure. If I get a complaint, I don't just hand it back to my staff typically. I typically speak to the person and understand the issue. But I'd like to work that back through the employee. So if there was an issue that developed between an applicant or a citizen and the employee, that we need the employees all to have a good rapport with those folks and have the chance to rebuild that if they have had a misstep. Because I think that helps us in the future, that they know that the employee can work through the issue and be successful in the long term. Some issues don't get resolved very easily. Some of them because of a code issue. Some of it, we aren't perfect in any way, shape, or form. And sometimes there's something out of our control. And when we get to that point with the issues, then when I would involve the county administrator's office in addressing that concern. And we continue to have our customer service survey that's on all of our communications and voicemail. It's not very well utilized. I mean, we're having, 10 to 11 hits a month on that, which isn't very many considering we probably have 1,000, we have thousands of contacts a month. many with the same person, but, you know, between phone, email, people walking in, we touch a lot of folks every month. The third goal is to become more customer friendly by making greater use of our electronic resources and capacity. There's 3 items under this. One is to implement a program that would have a web portal for entrepreneurs to be able to locate sites for future businesses if funding is available. I've recommended that we go through a request for proposals process on that because 6 or 8 months ago, it looked like there was just one company doing that, and now there are several, so I think our pricing, we might get more for less if we do the RFP process. The second item would be to make full use of electronic submission and review processes. And one thing that I think we need to do in that is to have our folks that are our regular customers in the development community come in and talk about how they use that process in the electronic submission. I've had pretty good feedback on, you know, getting rid of the paper. You know, we've gone from 10 or 11 paper copies to 1, and eventually we'll get rid of that 1 once we figure out the electronic signatures and how to get the electronic approved copy into the field. But we've had good review with that process with that. We've had a little bit of issue coordinating how we get those files because they're huge, and so I think we've resolved that. But I want to have a meeting with those folks to discuss their thoughts on that. We still need to allow online electronic payment, and that's a greater unified government issue I believe that we're going to be working on because I can have the whole electronic application, everything be electronic, but I can't take their payment electronically. They still have to send a check or come in to do that. And then I would like to automate the submission process so that when they actually fill out our paper application, which I know many of you have seen, that they would do that online. It would automatically update our database for the application because I now get that application. I have to have somebody type that in. So they've paid somebody to type it in. Now I'm going to pay somebody to type it in, and data entry has its issues. I mean, every time somebody touches a key, there's a percentage chance that'll be wrong. And so having that all automatically populate will make my staff more efficient, especially in the administrative end where I have, you know, one person who's within 10 hours of their max that they can get in comp time, and I don't have any overtime payment budget, and they get lots of vacation every year. So it's one of my areas that I really look for efficiencies, and I think that would help that. And then also, once we work through all of this, work with the folks we meet with regularly on our customers and improving the process, work with the PIO to talk a little bit about a marketing plan so people know what we've done, because we've done a lot of good work. We haven't talked about it much recently on our
What's a PIO?
Public Information Officer.
Thank you.
Edwin.
Yeah, Edwin.
Okay, hear that, Edwin?
On goal 3, there's we can meet with the folks and figure out what tweaks we need to make, but the other items are funding dependent. So you'll see funding requests in one way or another on those items, as that goal has a significant funding portion to it. But how do we measure those? Goal 1, working with small businesses, and goal 2, to some degree, we're going to be doing tracking, setting baselines, and looking for, you know, measurable improvement with those. When it's the first time we've done it, I don't really know where all of our specific faults and areas that we can improve in. It may not be an area that is bad, but we could still make improvements. So we'll be doing baselining for a few months, and then I'll be working with the administrator's office to work on improvement plans and upgrades in our systems to help those processes. I think beyond that, we will be on goal 3, implementation of one of the electronic resources to develop a better web portal. One of them that's available there's a web portal that says basically, what would you like to do in our city? So if they want to open a new restaurant, it would say, okay, here are all the zoning categories where a restaurant is available. Then it would add, here is all of the for sale and for lease properties and land bank properties within that zoning district that might be available to you for this business. Here's the actual terms of the zoning code, the contacts, the real estate agent that you would call and talk to help facilitate that, and answer some of those basic upfront questions that we can't answer. You know, it takes a lot of staff time when somebody says, well, where can I build a restaurant? Well, you know, there's 500 answers to that or more in our community, and so this would help them It would provide them a better mapping resource than we have right now to allow them to look for those places within our community. But that implementation of that would be a big help, I think, to our entrepreneurial and business development community. I'll be reporting on the review meeting with our frequent customers and as far as our electronic process goes, and we'll probably add some other, we won't limit it to that because I want to hear from them in other ways too with, how we review, what we review. And then obviously we would present those results to the county administrator's office and also completing a marketing plan to help folks understand what's available to them and what we've been doing that's really good to help the development community.
Okay, so I have two questions.
Yes.
One, am I crazy, or did you go to a system where you had one person that was sort of on call for questions in your office? Were you one of the offices that started doing that? And if so, did you stick with it, and what did you think of it?
To some degree, we do that. It's not formal. Trey, with Development Review Committee, we send the Development Review Committee questions to him until it's assigned to a particular staff member, and then they would deal with that staff member. That's a little hard to do with DRC because you don't really know which department the DRC question is going to relate to until it comes in. So we've done that with Trey. Otherwise, we all generally answer the questions if somebody comes in or a phone call. And then when cases come in, when they actually make an application, they get assigned to one person, and that person tracks it through. So like on your staff reports, you'll see that Trey did that, or Jamie did that, or Byron did that, or I handled that case. And that's where they get the one point of contact after that. And we try and keep that person the same. Whoever did the pre-application meeting or talked to him at the counter would follow that through. But, for the last 2 weeks, we've had somebody on vacation, and we've just had 2 of us here, so that won't happen in those time frames. But we do try and keep people talking to one person to the greatest degree that we can. I just don't have the staff to go one person answering all the questions all the time.
That's a perfect lead into my second question, which was, is part of your survey, or do you ever ask how many people they had to contact before they got their question answered? Because I think that would give you a numerical reference to be able to figure out if you were getting people's questions answered in a timely manner or not. If they say, I had to talk to 6 different people before I got my question answered, whether it's your department or someone else's, if they had to bounce around, at least that would give you the idea we're clearly not getting their question answered, in the way that we should or as quickly as we should. Because it's hard with, when you're dealing with customer service, it's hard sometimes to measure, are we doing a good job or not doing a good job? They didn't cry on the phone, we did great, so that might be one way that you could start to see. And I think with small businesses in particular, and with your emphasis on small businesses, what they're finding is that they feel like they have to touch a dozen departments. So I think it would be interesting to see what they're saying now as far as how many touches they have to have before they get a question answered versus a year from now as you guys are beginning to work on this.
We do ask, was your question answered correctly the first time? And so occasionally we get an interesting answer to that. And no, I had to speak to 3 or 4 people, or I got 2 different answers. So we do ask that, but not the way you have. But I will look at our survey, and you might look at our survey online as well and see if maybe how to word that. Because I think the last thing you said was like within departments, and so that makes it a broader question than just within my survey. So we may need to look at.
Yeah, but I think it impacts how you guys do your customer service. If you're finding out they had to go to 7 departments before they got sent to mine, that'd be important for you to know, even though it's a broader question than what did my department do. When somebody gets something approved, it's gone through planning and zoning, they have their moment of victory, we finally approved it, do we send them something else after that, or is that just kind of it?
The applicant gets a notification of the decision.
Can we put a survey in the notification?
Yeah, we have our survey in paper format too, so.
Yeah, because you just said you had a hard time getting surveys back. That might be one way to get better responses if we see, they're kind of happy even, so they're even better results for you. They just got their approval. But at least that might be one way to.
Even if they get denied, they get a letter, so it's not just the good side.
But it might be one way to kind of emphasize that you want that survey back. If we're sending them something anyway, let's send that along.
It's a good idea.
As it relates to customer service with small businesses, particularly those that may not be able to hire somebody to come represent them, it strikes me that they go out and find their building or their property and maybe even pay something and then somehow they're alerted to the fact that they need proper zoning, when really that process needs to be the other way around. I don't know what, if anything, we can do collectively that could fit into your measurable goals and helping folks not take those steps in that order.
Well, I had that today. We had somebody that wanted to do live entertainment and dancing and have a bar and dance hall today, and they've already looked into a facility, and so, well, that requires a special use permit, and that process is, 70 to 90 days, and, that their reaction is never good to that. I think the thing that would help that the most is that web portal, because if somebody put, I want to do a bar or dancing, it would say, first thing on your list is you have to have a special use permit for this type of facility. Once you get to the zoning districts that allow that, then you have to have this too. And I think that's something that when they call us first, we can explain to them, but nobody ever calls us first. They always have at least the location identified, if not an option, or have purchased the property, and that makes our job even harder, because then we're automatically the bad guy and we don't have a chance to wear the white hat.
I would just like to see the departments, all of the departments that work with small business, talking to one another. I dream of a toolkit that says, did you know you need a business license? Here's the number. Did you know you need proper zoning? Here's the number.
Well, I have that dream, and we actually have it out very thoroughly outlined. That web portal is part of that, but it also goes to the next step of that is, okay, I have found a piece of property for sale within the zoning district that will allow that use, and I can build that there. What do I do next? And then it takes you to business license, it takes you to building inspection, it takes you to economic development, it takes you to WYDEC, and that would actually maybe even work for, on the county perspective, work with Edwardsville and Bonner as well, so that they would have their links in there as well. But if nobody in the country has that right now, I want to be the first one to do that, but it's a rather big bill to get that system put out there. A lot of web development on our end, and then it requires a higher level of database management than we've had in the past related to my office, which I want to do because it makes our job easier in the long run. But that is something that we've been working on, and before Greg Kendall was at WYDEC, Brent and I were working on it, and then the budget crisis happened, and that part went away. So I think all that is $125,000 to $150,000 for all those items to get done, to have that whole web portal from what do I want to do to this is the economic development tool I can use, and who to contact, and how, and the calculations, fee calculators, all those things that would be in that. And I think that would be very helpful for those folks, and especially if we had the marketing plan to go along with it, so that people knew that, hey, if you're going to start a business, check here first.
Commissioner Philbrook?
All right, I'm probably going to get into trouble here. It occurs to me that, of course, when you go out looking for property, you talk to brokers, and if that information was forthcoming from the broker in the properties they had shown, then it would probably make life a lot easier for people. I didn't know if there was any communities that actually require brokers to bring that sort of information, like what the property's zoned for, all that sort of thing, when they're showing it.
Well, there are laws that say that you can't advertise a zoning that doesn't exist already. So you can't have a piece of farmland that's maybe commercial in 5 years. You can't advertise that as commercial land. And that's one law that's out there, but it's not strictly enforced, let's say. But there's nothing like what you're describing, that they would bring their contacts to us, because then it's public and another realtor might be able to acquire that.
Well, that's why I said I'm probably gonna, have several phone calls after this suggestion. I just was trying to figure out, a way to open lines of communication that made it easier for people who do want to come in and develop.
And, there are several realtors that call me, regularly saying, I've got this person that wants to do this. How does that really fit anywhere? You know, and so I do have some of those contacts, but it's not uniform across the commercial real estate community.
Any suggestions?
I really think the portal would be good, because if they got a listing, people are going to see it, and they could, you know, they could use it themselves, saying, hey, I've got somebody that wants to do this, where can I take them, and where would that, where, you know, what would fit, and it would have our contact information on it. They might say, well, I don't really understand this, how does that work, and they could call us and get an answer to that before they went to show the property. So
your portal is the answer, that
well,
dream
you know,
portal.
I don't want to sell it as the end-all be-all, because it may or may not work out that way, but it would at least be something that was there for people to use. And that first part of the portal is not the expensive part of it, I don't think. So
Thank you.
we don't have enough staff to answer all those questions all the time if we don't have some electronic resource to help answer some of those questions first.
Commissioner Johnson?
Rob, I just wanted to know if you all had experimented or talked about social media as being a means of maybe doing interim and or secondary once the portal is, once we're finally able to get that, as a means of maybe pushing information or providing information to potential clients.
Edwin is working on the public information officer is working on a Facebook page for us where we would push 3 items a month primarily. One is when we get all the new applications in at the end of the month, and you all get a memo that describes what all those are. So we would push that out. We would push out the Planning Commission agenda and the Board of Commissioners agenda, so that if people liked our page, they would know what's going on. It's not a page to comment on or anything. It's just information. You know, a lot of times contractors want to know what's coming up, because they want to know who to contact to, you know, sell their wares, and that's great. I mean, especially for our local guys to do that. And if they like our page, they'll have those contacts and know who's moving forward with applications. So that's our first step. If we had a lot of likes and a lot of people following it, that might help. I'm not sure how much. We'll kind of play that by ear and see how much interest we get. It could be a lot of effort for 10 or 12 people that would really use it versus them just calling us. I don't know. I'll talk to Edwin about that.
Well, it's a cheaper way to do it.
Right.
And if certainly economic factors are a consideration, which they are, it might be something to have as like I said, as an interim means of doing that, and maybe we have a way of pushing that information out to the website or other means that say, hey, go here and here's some stuff that you can.
The thing that has kind of kept me from moving to that is the complexity of the information and how difficult zoning can be to understand for the non-zoning user. You know, when the development attorneys and I have discussions about, well, how does this really apply? And we've both been doing zoning for, 20 years. I don't expect the folks that come in that want to open their first, little shop to understand that in a lot of ways. So it's difficult, and it's a dilemma across the country. I mean, nobody's found the magic bullet for that yet. But I will talk to Edwin and see if, and where we're going, and see if he thinks that there's a way we can use that as well.
Other comments? Thanks so much, Rob, for spending the evening here at our standing committee.
Well, thank you for
had a good
allowing
run.
me to spend one evening with you and not 6 or 7.
We have additional measurable goals presentations, which will be presented by individual department heads, but Joe Connor is going to lead us off.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioners. This has been our ongoing effort to have departments come to you with 1 or 2 key measurable goals for their department. So in no particular order, we've got our staff out here. We'll go ahead and start with Matt from Emergency Management. So Matt, if you'd like to introduce yourself for everybody here and take it away.
Thank you, sir. For those who don't know me, I am Matt May. I'm the director of your Emergency Management Department. And we have many, many goals downstairs in the basement. But the one I'd like to share with you today that I'm looking forward to working on is our citizen engagement. And so if I could have the next slide. I have it. Thank you. Let's see if I go the right direction. So first off, why? Why that one? It really does matter. It helps us engage the public understand what, I mean, I would say the vast majority of folks don't even know what an emergency manager does. It gives us an opportunity to give them that education. It also gives us an opportunity to explain to them that to a certain extent, the cavalry's not going to show up right away, and that they have a responsibility to support themselves for a little while, and that we'll get to, we'll get whatever we can to them as quickly as we can, but for their own comfort and safety, they probably want to do a little preparation, and then give them the knowledge and skills to do that with, whether it's how to build a preparedness kit and so forth. Those are things that can help them survive an event in a much more comfortable way. Provide them an outlet, provides us an outlet, or them an outlet to support their fellow citizens. And in specific, what I'm trying to refer to here is our CERT teams, our Citizens Emergency Response Teams. It's a great place for them to say, hey, how can I help others? It's a very, there's roles for everybody involved there. We have some folks who are, quite honestly, even marginally ambulatory, and yet they still have a role in it. Likewise, in our RACES group, which is our amateur radio group, they're a key piece to that. We had them out until midnight last Saturday, this past Saturday, doing weather spotting for us. That was a key piece to our having good information about what was going on. When they tell me they see a rotating wall cloud in the sky, that means something to me, and it means something to National Weather Service, but we have to educate them and get them there to do that, and so that takes some effort. And last, but probably just as important, it is a statutory requirement for an emergency management program that we make sure that we do that. So that's why we're going to work on increasing that. Here's just a couple of quick pictures. Upper left is a Boy Scout camp out that was done at Pearson Park a few months ago. That's in the upper left corner. We took out our communications trailer and demonstrated that to the Boy Scouts, got them interested in possibly being in some of those roles like RACES or the radio amateur group. The next one going around clockwise to the right is Andy Bailey from the National Weather Service, who comes out every year and does a presentation for us on storm spotting. It always amazes me how many people turn out for that, 200, 300, 400. It's not an unusual number that people are that interested in weather and what goes on with weather. It is a key piece to our threat and risk here, and so people do care about it. He does a great presentation. Below that, you see in the lower right corner is a drill and exercise that we were doing inside our EOC, and that we do every year. It's called the Simulated Emergency Test, and we run that through. That's one of many exercises we're doing this year. It's another place where we're increasing some activity. And then the last one over in the lower left is the CERT team themselves out doing a presentation with the Night Out Against Crime. I think it was part of that one, particular one was from, but we do those on a routine basis and trying to get out, get some visibility of that program, and again, helps people prepare for themselves. That's the whole premise of CERT. Prepare yourself first, and then if you have the opportunity to support your neighbors, you can do that, and that's what that program is based on. So traditionally, we've done 5 to 6 presentations a year on average. My goal for us is to double that number for this year, and then double it again for next year. So my intent is to get us to at least where we're doing on average 15 to 20 public interactions of some sort every year. So far this year, what we've done in 15 is we did a weather symposium where we took several of our both RACES and CERT members over to Lawrence, where they do a large regional presentation that really has gained a national scale. It's a really great presentation that they do on weather. And then that weather spotter presentation that I referred to earlier. CERT classes, we try to do 2 of those a year, and we just finished one up, so we've got several more people who are part of the CERT program. I did a presentation for the 3rd District Republican Women's Group. Just, again, any civic or organization or any of you are a member of who are interested in having a presentation about emergency response or even how we sound sirens or any of those kinds of things, we're always willing to support that. So that's what I did for them. Boy Scout Service Day I already referred to in the picture, you saw that. Another place where we try to do these is in support with our partners, and one of those is Red Cross. And they have a great program working that goes out and does installs of smoke detectors, particularly in areas where, for example, the fire department has identified where we've had a couple of fatality fires, indicating that most likely those homes don't have working smoke detectors. And so our CERT teams partnered up with the Red Cross to go out and install on that particular day. One day we did 124 smoke detector installs in one morning before we got rained out. And then most recently, another opportunity for us is always the opportunity to speak with the media. You know, when you use that broad brush. And most recently there were concerns about weather. We had a rough weather weekend out at the Speedway, and people knew that and were asking questions about that. And I made sure that we had an opportunity to present what we do in preparation for that and how we're working in concert with the Speedway to make sure that that venue has the best information they can have, including staffing the forward operation out there as well as staffing here at the EOC. And so Bridget said I couldn't go any longer than that, so I'm not going to. Any questions?
Well, my husband and my uncle are both involved in CERT, and I have an emergency kit in my trunk, so it is an incredible
One
program.
down,
In fact, I think he's at a
147,000 to
CERT
go.
meeting tonight, so.
So I have something you can add to your list. So next May, the next time Kiwanis does their bike rodeo, we would like to have you out there.
Absolutely. Please let me do that. I'd be
Okay.
honored.
Just send me an email and I'll send it on to our commander in that.
Other questions or comments?
Commissioner Philbrook, when is that typically?
It's usually in the middle of May, on Saturday.
We'll get a calendar.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Bridget? Well, Bridget Cobbins come next, our clerk. She's usually in the other chair, but today she's going to be presenting to you, so.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Bridget Cobbins, the Unified Government Clerk. And tonight I'd like to share a few goals with you all for the Department of Administration. Before I go over the goals, I'd like to first kind of give you an overview of what the departments or the divisions that are within my department, and so that you can kind of get an idea of what our day-to-day operations are. I have down former city clerk and former county clerk, and that's for the benefit of showing what the roles of our divisions are, and so you have a better understanding of what the Unified Government Clerk's Office does since consolidation. Agendas and minutes, I think you're very familiar with that role that we do in the Clerk's Office. We prepare all the agendas and minutes for every standing and full commission meeting. We get those out to the commissioners in a timely manner, and we upload that information to our website for our constituents to have available. Birth and death certificates. Prior to 1911, the Unified Government retains any birth and death certificates for the general public. That would be for any individuals that were born in Wyandotte County. After July of 1911, those are now retained by the state of Kansas, so those requests are forwarded to the state for that. The Kansas Open Records Act. I am the official record keeper for the Unified Government, so any request that comes to the Unified Government for open records requests, those come into the clerk's office and then they are forwarded to the respective departments for they to handle. Under the Senior Utility Rebate Program, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. That is a program that was approved back in 1972, and it's specific to Kansas City, Kansas. And that rebate program gives back our citizens, there's a criteria for it. That gives them back a portion of the utilities that they've paid on their prior year bills. It is specific to Kansas City, Kansas residents. You have to be 65 years of age for a particular year, and the cap at that is at $150. I do have listed the former county clerk. Oh, and with the senior utility rebates, just to give you some data, we processed over 1,100 utility rebates in the previous tax year to our senior citizens. Former county clerk role, we are the liaison for the 15 entities for the Wyandotte County area. That would include Kansas City, Kansas, Bonner Springs, Edwardsville, the 4 school districts, USD 500, 202, 203, 204. The drainage districts, Walcott, Fairfax, and Call Valley, also Wyandotte County, and also the school boards. So we do receive the information from those entities, and like I said, we're the liaison. We set the levies and calculate the values and send that up to the state on a yearly basis. Real estate ownership. Any property that is transferred in Wyandotte County for a real estate property, home ownership, if you sell your property, buy property, the county clerk's office transfer those on a daily basis. Once those properties are filed in the Register of Deeds office, the very next day, those properties are changed. Our goal is to protect the integrity of the tax roll, and on a daily basis, we're updating those files. Homestead refund is a state-funded program. The state statute requires that the county clerk's office provide assistance to those that are eligible for this program. And the purpose of the homestead refund is that it allows for a portion of their real estate property tax to be paid on their behalf. There is a criteria established for your age. There's income bracket that one has to qualify for. In the previous year, the clerk's office processed over 400, the last year we processed over 600 homestead refunds. And I say that to say that there is a lot of traffic that comes into the clerk's office on a yearly basis. And during the homestead and utility rebate program, it starts in January 2nd, and the utility program ends on March the 31st, and the homestead refund ends on April 15th. And those are the two main functions of the former city clerks and the former county clerks area. And as a result of the consolidation, those offices are now under one umbrella, and we're about 90% cross-trained on all the duties and responsibilities within the clerk's office. And that's taken us about 4 years to get to that point. The Record Center manages the UG records. In that department, we have a staff person of one, and his role is to be the key person for records for the unified government, and that's from creation till their destruction time, and we have a retention schedule that we look at to determine when those documents are timed for those to be destroyed. In our mailroom, we process the mail for the unified government. Last month, we processed about 30,000, I believe, about 30,000 pieces of mail that was processed for the mail that goes through the unified government. So we touch a lot of mail throughout the government, and that's not including our inter-office mail and mail that comes through from the U.S. Post Office that are packages, or from the FedEx or other companies like that. Customer service. This is something that I take a lot of pride in. From a department head standpoint, I just don't say it. I lead by example with my staff, and we are all on the same page as it relates to customer service. It is our department goal. It's a #1 goal of everyone in our department to make sure that we are providing very keen customer service to our internal UG employees as well to external. Promptness. All of our phone calls, when you call the clerk's office, our phones will be answered before 3 rings start. Our standard within our department is if you call our office, the first thing you will hear is clerk's office, this is Bridget. Records office, Records Center, this is Paul. Mailroom, this is Gerald. It's important for me and for our staff to first identify who we are when we're speaking to someone on the phone, and to give them a name. When someone calls your office, they should know who they're speaking to, if they need to get back in contact with you, or if they need to contact someone in the future, they'll have a name. Another thing that we take pride in is that when we talk to persons in our office, we don't have them standing in our office for minutes before their service. Once they come into our office, we have a bell that if we're not at our desk and if someone comes in, they ring the bell, and immediately you'll have at least 2 to 3 people coming up to our counter to assist anyone that's internal staff and our outside constituents. We're definitely courteous about making sure that when we do communicate with the public, that we are being respectful of individuals. We're sensitive also to our public and to our internal staff, and making sure that we're being we're meeting their needs, and that we're being cognitive of their time. When emails are sent to our office, our departmental rule is that it is responded to within 24 hours. If you leave a voicemail with any of our staff, you will be contacted within 24 hours. We don't hold individuals on the phone for over a minute. And if you do contact our office, you will talk to a person. You will not talk to a recording system. Some of the things that we're looking at in this fall for upcoming surveys, since we do see a lot of people through the homestead and utility rebate, we are working on a survey that we can start to implement in January of 2015, that when those individuals come into the clerk's office, after we've completed their rebates, we will provide them with the survey because we want to know how we're doing as a department, and specifically how each individual person is communicating with them. So that is something that I will be getting with my supervisors in the near future, but that will be implemented in January of 2015. For the mailroom, like I said, we do a lot of mail for the entire unified government. Each department is assigned a rotary box, and I will be setting out surveys randomly into different rotary boxes, just trying to find out if we're meeting the needs of those departments and if there's an issue or concern that they can address that with me personally, just so that I can see and to ensure that when their mail is being touched, that we're getting it in and out in a timely manner. The Record Center is the department that also serves the unified government as a whole. And the goal with that is implementing a survey to those departments that are key users for the Record Center, and to also try to find out which departments that we're not tapping into that we should be communicating with to get those records into the Record Center. Our final item that I have before you tonight is that we're working diligently with our IT department to get us a new agenda management system. It's really not going to impact what you see on a day-to-day basis. It will be more visible, and it'll be clear, and it will be easy for you to follow. One of the main benefits to what we're trying to accomplish with this new agenda management system is that our goal is to have it set that it's going to be bookmarked and in sync with the video recording. So in the event that someone is trying to look at the video of previous meetings, instead of fast forwarding and rewinding to listen into the entire meeting, you can go to the agenda, double click it, and you can hear what was said at the meeting in real time. So that's one of the things that we're really looking forward to in the near future. And with that, I'll close by saying that customer service, accuracy, and transparency are our top 3 priorities. We strive to fulfill the statutory duties in a prompt and effective manner by providing services that connect citizens to their government. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions?
I just want to make a comment. I'm impressed that you have such a high rate of cross-training. That is just amazing. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Thanks so much, Bridget.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Bridget. Our last presentation is from our team in HR, and I'll let Shakiva Christian, our Deputy Director, introduce her team and the topic.
Okay, good evening. Once again, I'm Shakiva Christian, Human Resources Manager for the Human Resources Department. We have several goals in the HR department that we will aspire to do, but we wanted to highlight one specific area that we're pretty proud of is our safety and workers' compensation program. We started our safety program in about 2013, in which we were allowed to hire 2 positions. Dave Wimberly is our safety officer who recently started with us, and Dustin Swartz is our work comp coordinator. So we're going to basically go over some of our safety program initiatives, as well as discuss some outcomes that are a result of our new programs.
Good evening. One of the first things that we did was we created a couple of different safety committees. We started off with our Executive Safety Committee, which helped establish different safety policies throughout the whole entire UG. And we also have department safety committees, which are individual safety committees within the departments made up of frontline employees, which help myself and Dustin as far as being our eyes on the ground, seeing what is going on in the particular departments. And with that, with our with our first policy that we changed was our workers' compensation and injury leave policy. We just updated some of the language in that particular policy, and then we trained our supervisors and employees on the changes. Then we went through and updated our driver safety and accident reporting policy and made that more in line with DOT standards and also the insurance industry in changing some of the parameters there. And again, we also have gone through training with our supervisors on the new standards and also our employees. Then the last thing that we did as far as policy trainings is we created a new employee orientation safety training, which we implemented back in October of 2013. And through that, we've trained new employees, approximately 280 new employees with that new safety training program. just some other safety trainings that we have done. We've done driver safety training with our appraiser's office. We've gone through with our juvenile detention center and also our public records division and the police department with ergonomics training. And then we've also worked with our Parks and Recreation Department and also the Justice Complex on our hazard communications and chemical safety in those areas. Currently, some of our new initiatives that we're doing right now is creating a safety manual that will include a lot more safety policies that should be implemented for all UG employees. We're working on a safety incentive program which will reward employees on bringing hazardous situations to our attention and also helping us figure out different ways to correct those hazardous situations. And we're also working on a light duty program for instances when an employee is unfortunately injured and can't return to work. We want to find them some kind of productive work within their department or within the UG so they can continue working in some form or fashion. And with these current initiatives, we plan to see reductions in our workers' compensation numbers, and I'll let Dustin speak to those.
So since 2012, we've seen a steady decline in our workers' compensation claims. With last year, 2014, we had 208 claims, which is actually the lowest number of claims we've had since we've consolidated. So we have made some big gains there and a lot of progress. Some of the factors that are impacting our declining claims is in 2011, there was a change to the Kansas Workers' Compensation Act, where it defined what was compensable, what's not, and how many days an employee has to alert their supervisor when they can report have an injury. Also, we've seen a lot of aggressive claim management, claim investigations. We've enhanced our accountability and increased the communication amongst all of our stakeholders, so physicians, physical therapists, our employees, and our supervisors, as well as all the safety trainings that Dave aforementioned. Our goal for 2015 is to reduce the number of work injuries by at least 5%. We'd like to see our number at 198 or below. This will be the first time the UG's been under 200 claims.
And with that, we would like to open up for any questions you may have.
I know this is close to Commissioner Keene's heart.
Well, if you've only trained 2 groups in ergonomics, that's not very good. You know, and what I see here, I see a lot of supervisors. I don't see anything about basic employee union involvement. You know, this isn't a one-sided program.
That's correct.
And it wasn't intended to be a one-sided program. It was intended, because I brought this on, it was intended to involve the unions, let them know what was going on, and all those numbers look good. I hope we're not browbeating our employees.
No, we're not. And we have done additional ergonomics training with some departments. Those are just 2 of the major departments that we've done training
And I don't
for.
know why would we reward anybody for not doing something unsafe. Safety's not a rewardable issue, in my mind.
Correct. And the idea is to award someone for bringing up a new idea for safety, not rewarding bad behaviors.
And you know, we had an incident happen right down the street the other day about when the gas pipe broke or whatever, and I've asked for information about that, and from Doug, and I've yet to get a satisfactory answer. And I realize that you guys are to focus on our employees. Well, our employees were in that building that day, and our employees were at risk. And we should, I don't have the report I want yet, and I'm going to get that report one way or the other. But we need to talk to the contractor because there's multiple things they're required to do, and you know this in your training, that what caused the incident, who caused the incident, how they repaired it, what they were going to do to prevent the incident from happening again. And I know your focus is employees, but we had a whole bunch of folks that were forced to leave their offices, and nobody went around and told any of them anything except get out. So I think we as a unified government failed miserably last week, and I'm not just blaming you guys. You know, because this is near and dear to my heart, because I've had to tell somebody their family member is not going home the same way they come to the plant. And until you've been in that boat, and it sucks, and we've had to do that with our police officers, our firemen, and a bunch of other folks. But I'm telling you that this safety thing, in my mind, is something that needs to be on top, and it's also not cheap. You know, and don't take this as me getting on you. I'm pretty mad because I didn't get what I wanted from Doug. But it's important that when we have an incident out there, especially as close to this place, where most of our workers are at, it's very frustrating for me not to get a response other than I got a 2-page thing, who did it? And that doesn't work for me. And I'm not going to quit until I get an answer. You know, and for you 3 administrators, you're going to want to tell Doug this, because I don't play when it comes to safety. And what happened over at the Plaza can happen here. And that's my example. And I promise you, if that happens to our people, I will help the family members that didn't make it home sue the city.
Just a comment with regard to part of what you bring up, because I also work a block away from this building and was on the avenue the day of the gas leak and the evacuations, and my question at that time was, my building was not notified, period. And I just kind of go sauntering back into my office, but this is not the first time I've had the question. To me, it's an emergency management question, and it's only one piece of what you are describing, but for me and my background working at the Red Cross, the evacuation piece is an emergency management communications plan, and I've often wondered, what is that plan, particularly as it relates to downtown KCK, because that happens to be where I work. So not to take away from the other pieces of what you bring up, but just to focus in on that piece. I'm not sure how much of that is work comp and how much of it is part of an emergency communications plan.
Well, and that's part of it. We didn't communicate very well to the folks. And in fact, I was walking on my route when I see everybody out. And then I'm standing there, and people are just nonchalantly walking around, and they left their buildings because everybody else left. And they weren't notified. And then when you get somebody who knows your background, so hey, safety guy, what do you think about this? And then, you know, all the lawsuits that are being settled over Missouri because they didn't evacuate that building, and yet they had the smell. And for me not to get the answers, because the answers are simple. Guy made a mistake. What was the corrective action? You know, the answer I got was a subcontract. I don't care if it's a subcontractor or not. They're still doing work for us, so we're still responsible. So that's why I get frustrated. But we need to do a better job the next time an incident happens like that we notify the surrounding facilities, not just our folks, but everybody else, hey, we got an issue and you need to get out, and then we need to go back and make sure they're out, and then when it's time to go back in, we go back and tell them to go back in.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes, I just have one question, and I wanted to know I see you have the goal of less than 200 claims. What tangible criteria do you all utilize to come up with that 5% goal for the number of claims?
We utilize, that's just basically the standard that's out there, a 5% reduction.
That's an industry standard?
Yes, it is, and it's wherever you go. And I was just laughing at when you asked that question, because I turned to him and said, that's the standard. They come up with that as a goal. And sometimes it's attainable, sometimes it's not. But that's clear across the board, and which is a good one, because it gives you something to reach for. And there has been improvement, and we've seen that. You know, but then as you get what happens sometimes, especially since these guys have been at it for a little while, you'll see the numbers drop down, then they'll go stagnant for a while because then they've got to go do the new programs, the new stuff that's come in. So then it doesn't make the 5%. Once you learn the new stuff, then it increases.
Okay. Well, at least that answers the question.
Other
I
questions?
only did it for 21 years.
All right. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're in the home stretch. We have 2 remaining items. Almost there, guys. Our next item is an appearance by Mr. Murray Anderson, I think he's back there, waiting on us to request an amendment to the UG Charter. Mr. Anderson, please come to the mic and state your name and city of residence for the record. You will be given up to 3 minutes to present your item.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioner Markley. My name is Murray Anderson, and I reside in Rosedale in Kansas City, Kansas. Been a member of Wyandotte County for about 60 years. The purpose of me wanting to speak with the committee is that my concern is regarding the mayor-CEO position and the authority of the commissioner to represent a citizen's interests if that citizen has a conflicting view or issue that is not in lockstep with the office of mayor CEO. I had a recent experience in 2011 whereas that I had put forward a question to present to the unified government, and I was refused that opportunity. And in fact, because the view was not a popular view, I was told in a letter document by the Unified Government's General Counsel that I should cease discussing this issue with any public officials. Now, I'm here because I value my vote. I'm also here because I respect the office of my commissioner. After I had resolved in my mind that my next step in the journey should be, in fact, to turn to my commissioner, and my commissioner happens to be Commissioner Ann McGeer from the 3rd District. Well, I did turn to my commissioner and requested that my commissioner consider representing my interests by putting me on the agenda. My commissioner, in good character, responded in a document stating to me that she in fact did not have the authority to put me on the agenda. That was very disappointing. That experience said to me that the office of mayor CEO has the same power as a pharaoh, as a king, which means that we don't have a representative democracy. In my view as a citizen, I believe that in democracy, a citizen should not be censored, no matter what the nature of the discussion may be, no matter how difficult the issue may be. I believe also that in a representative government, that a citizen should have the capacity and the ability and the opportunity to turn to their duly elected official, their commissioner of their district, and request that that commissioner step forward and put an issue before the appropriate forum under all circumstances. So my only interest here today is to request that the commissioners consider the fact that they should be enabled to represent the interests of any of their constituents under any circumstances in the appropriate forum. And I apologize for my phone. I should have shut it off. It's a little bit embarrassing. I voted for the unification of the unified government in 1997 because I believed that it would usher in an era of financial and economic inclusion and fairness in our community and eliminate the experiences that particularly the minority community has in terms of its participation within major economic development and financial issues. But I did not vote for the unified government to structure an office of mayor, CEO that had the same power as a king, or in fact as a pharaoh.
Your time is up, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're to our final item, ladies and gentlemen. We're in the home stretch. We are going to hear from Commissioner Murguia this evening, recommending amendments to the smoking ordinance, and she has some guests. She has some guests with her that she will introduce. Yeah, sit right up there by the mic. You gotta be by the microphone.
Thank you, Chairwoman Markley, and my fellow commissioners for allowing me to come to present today. I bring with me our university collaborators from the University of Kansas Medical Center. And before they give a very short presentation, I'd like to introduce them. Dr. Kim Kimenow sits here to my right, is an associate professor in the Department of Family Medicine at the University of Kansas Medical Center and the director of the Center for Community Health Improvement. She also serves as the research director for the National Research Network at the American Academy of Family Physicians. She has a master's and a PhD in biomedical anthropology from Ohio State University. Her research interests include oral health, cancer prevention, and community health. She is especially passionate about translating research into healthcare practice and in informing policy to improve health. Robin Liston, who is to the right of Dr. Kimenow, is a project director in the Department of Preventative Medicine and Public Health at the University of Kansas Medical Center. She has a master's of public health from KUMC, and her professional interests also reflect a commitment to community engagement to improve health and health policy. So I'm going to go ahead and let them present. It's a very short presentation.
Okay, here we go. This one?
Either, yeah, you can take. Yeah, I'd use the taller one. The other one just.
Five minutes between you and dinner, so and my dinner too. So thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners, for a chance to talk with you about an issue I really don't think I'm going to need much to provide to you. The opportunity to talk tonight is great, but I will tell you that as a commission and as a unified government, you've already shown such incredible leadership with respect to electronic cigarettes. I don't think you have far to go for being able to take advantage of a toolkit that Commissioner Murguia has now shared with you that we're providing to municipalities across the state. I'm going to just share some information we know. Do we know if there are health benefits to using electronic cigarettes? The answer is no, we don't know. The claims about it are not supported yet from any current scientific evidence, so I'm here to say that we have not been able to study this or prove that it helps smokers quit. In fact, Adult smokers who use these devices basically have a harder time quitting right now. They're less likely to stop using traditional cigarettes. So are there health hazards? The other side of this coin, the answer is yes. Nicotine is the addictive substance in tobacco. That's what's in the vapor, the aerosol that is used for electronic cigarettes. These containers can be tampered with. The FDA has not approved or regulated these things, so anything can go in the vials that go into these battery-charged or non-battery charged devices. So you can put in, I mean, think about it. You can put in anything, hash oils, ground up other drugs, and there's no containment. The other side of that is because you can't contain them, it means they can break or be accessed. And most of the increase to poison control centers are because children are getting into these fruit and berry-flavored, chocolate-flavored, labeled devices that go into the electronic cigarettes, and it's extremely toxic. Even touching it with the skin will cause a toxic reaction, particularly for small children. So we know that they're harmful, and there may be benefits, but that's yet to be proved. So e-cigarettes are not covered by the Kansas Indoor Clean Air Act, and that leaves municipalities and counties like Wyandotte exposed for a number of issues. They're not covered by most city ordinances because smoking and tobacco have been really at the forefront of regulation. Electronic cigarettes are neither smoking nor tobacco. So because of that, they fall out of the jurisdiction of your current regulations on tobacco and smoking. Does that make sense? You don't smoke these things, you vape them. They're aerosol, they're not actually a burned smoking product, and they don't come from tobacco. You can have chemically produced nicotine, never saw a tobacco plant. So in both cases, they sort of fall through the cracks of current smoking requirements. So the unified government has already taken great steps for including electronic cigarettes in your human resource policies. And just about 11 months ago, almost a year now, you acted on this and showed pretty bold leadership. We'd like to encourage you to do the same thing again by modifying current statute and revising the definitions of smoking and tobacco so that these products don't fall through the cracks for the entire county. The toolkit you have in front of us provides some legally sound guidance. We had the School of Law at KU provide a full study nationwide of laws that have been put in place to protect the population's health. So you'll see specific language in the toolkit that we offer to work with your legal counsel and we think is advisable for local law. I also wanted to say, I know I'm running out of my 5 minutes, but
Yeah, you're fine.
I'm hearing you,
We're
No.
disorganized.
As I said, it's to modify your current policy so the coverage would be comparable to what you currently have with tobacco products. So no more so restrictive, no less so restrictive. You'll see a map that I think really speaks quite a bit. We're not endorsing the American Non-Smokers Rights Foundation. I'm just showing you this because I love maps and I think they tell a lot. There are 3 blue triangles on your map in the state of Kansas. They don't know Kansas very well. It's a little off kilter. But these are 3 cities that have already taken control of electronic cigarettes and put it into city statutes and law. They are McPherson, Overland Park, and Olathe. It sort of looks like it's Kansas City, Missouri, or Kansas City, but it needs to go a little west. Those 3 cities have enacted ordinances. The unified government in Wyandotte County would be the first county-wide entity in the state of Kansas, and as you can see, in pretty much the entire Midwest, to take this step to provide population health and public health protections from electronic cigarettes. And you are almost there. So I invite you to ask questions. We have a frequently asked questions section. You can see we have a guidance for city and municipal law that we offer to provide support to your legal counsel. And we're here to answer any of your questions or fill in any additional information.
I see that Misty from Legal is lingering here. I'm wondering if some work has been done on this already and if she'd like to give us an idea of what it would take for our ordinance to fit into this folder.
Thank you for asking.
Good evening, Commissioners. I would start by saying that when we drafted the smoking ordinance, we included electronic cigarettes at that time in it by having a like a bit in there about a device that was heated so that they would be prohibited. Technology has changed, so now there's a way to have e-cigarettes that are not heated. So in order to make it very clear in our ordinance, it would just take some minor tweaks. I've looked at the information provided by KU, it was very helpful, and put together a draft ordinance that would effectively make it very clear that all e-cigarettes would be banned in, per our ordinance. And then while I was at it, went ahead and did some tweaks to it so that we'd be better in compliance with state law. Just a few very minor things that we needed to clean up and never got to. So this is something I have it ready to go whenever the commission wants it.
So, Commissioner Markley, what we would ask is for you to take action on tonight is that originally when I submitted this request to be heard by all of you, we didn't ask for action because we know our legal team is very busy and we had no idea that they would be so ambitious that they would be finished with the work by the time we by the time we came to all of you. So just for efficiency purposes and to eliminate long nights like you've had tonight, we would like to ask if you all would just move it to the full commission. At that time, Misty would be more than happy to present the ordinance changes, which it would be a public requirement, and then we can collectively as a full commission vote on at that time.
But if it's unanimous, it'd be on the consent agenda.
I'm sorry, it would not be able to be on the consent agenda because you have to have a written ordinance before you, and I think since it's not, you don't have that written ordinance before you, that we would treat it as a new ordinance coming before the full commission and just not make it on the consent agenda.
So it can go to full commission from here. It just would have to be separate from consent agenda because we'd have to have that new ordinance in our packet.
I believe that's the case.
I just have one question. Sure. The language that you've provided and that you've worked on, I mean, it feels like these things change almost on a daily basis. So are we as current and comprehensive as we can possibly be? Or I guess if things change in a year, we can just go back and amend again?
I think we've made it very inclusive. I've spent some time going over it and wrapping my head around every possible scenario. I thought I did it before. I had no idea that we could inhale anything without heat, but I think we've got it covered. But
I think that's the part that amazes me so much, and I just watched this documentary on PBS about e-cigarettes and vaping, and I was just astounded. I had no idea. So that's what I'm thinking about is people are so ingenious with techniques that they come up with. So that's all I wanted to know.
I think my concern when I first read it was being overly broad, that would prohibit things that, are not potentially harmful to everyone else. But I think we found the right match of keeping it so that we're protecting the public health but not infringing on civil liberties.
County Administrator Joe Connor.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one clarification. I think Kim was asking for a county-wide, ordinance, and I don't think that what Misty's prepared is county-wide. It's a city-wide ordinance for the city of Kansas City, Kansas. So I just want to make sure, I know that's what your ask was, but.
You are pretty much the county, so.
We are
We don't have,
Well, we don't take the other cities for granted. I'm just
I
trying to
understand.
make that
we
clear.
can't tell them what to do.
That's my question. What we do here, they have to be their own. The Edwardsville and Bonner would have to make their own ordinance, correct?
And we'd be happy to go before them as well
Sure.
to provide this information.
They have their sovereign bodies, elected bodies, and we don't.
Okay,
try-
so it'll be a blue triangle, it won't be a green circle, but I'm still moving towards the green circle. Thank you, Joe. Yeah.
Commissioner Philbrook.
Well, with all that being said, then I would suggest that we move forward to the most area we can cover, which would be the city part, and that you bring it before the commission.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
Roll call.
Roll call. Philbrook,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Bynum, Markley.
Aye. And that was our final item, so we thank you for your presentation. We are also
I
adjourned.
should have voted no.
It wouldn't matter, it's not going to consent agenda.
We're getting to that. We're getting
I should have voted no.
Have Joe. That's right.